This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and viewing information can be found on the district website. This meeting is called to order. It is August 17th, 2022, and the time is 6:36 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Dr. Green, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's going to be a prop later, so just making things look good here. Okay, thank you, Dr. Green. Will you please call roll? We call roll then. Thank you.
I kind of wanted to wait until Dr. Putnam got through moving first. Scott Andreasen.
Here.
Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Al Dahlgren.
Here.
Zach Dorholt. Here. Les Green is here. Shannon Hawes.
Here.
Monica Segura-Schwartz.
Here.
The following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office. Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam. Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Kay Nelson. Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, Dr. Mike Rivard. Director of Equity Services, Ayan Omar. Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology, Ryan Cox. Executive Director of Community Education, Adam Holm. Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, Amy Scalarud. Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations, Tracy Flynn Bowe. Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, Lori Posch. Executive Director of Operations, Gary Ganji. Executive Director of Research, Assessment, and Enrollment, Donna Roper. Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education, Carol Potter. Media Technicians, Paul Novak and Gordy Scott. Custodian on site is Steve Hain. The following staff are virtually present. Executive Assistant, Jan McGuire.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'm looking for an approval of tonight's Board of Education meeting agenda.
So move.
And do I have a second? I have a motion by Scott and a second by Zach. Dr. Green, can you please call roll?
Scott Andreasen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt. Les Green is yes. Shannon Hawes.
Yes.
Monica Segura-Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of minutes from July 20, 2022. Item B, approval of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total amount of $8,170,548.15. Item C, approval of personnel staff changes. Item D, acceptance of grant awards and donations. Item E, sale of surplus and obsolete equipment. Item F, Talahi HVAC project change orders totaling $6,377. Item G, Clearview site improvements change order totaling $15,928. Item H, Catherine Johnson Education Center site improvements change order totaling $75,460. And item I, Catherine Johnson Education Center project change orders totaling $27,176.20. Does any board member wish to remove an item from tonight's consent agenda? Okay, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So move.
And do I have a second? Again, a motion by Scott, a second by Zach. Dr. Green, can you please call roll?
Scott Andreasen,
Yes.
Zach Dorhold. Les Green is yes. Shannon Hawes.
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz. Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Al Dahlgren.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our one informational item tonight. Very exciting. We have Citizens Appreciation Award. Will be presented by Gary Ganji, Executive Director of Operations. And welcome.
Thank you. Actually, it will not be presented by me. I will be presenting, or I will be introducing our partners from the St. Cloud Police Department. I'm honored tonight to be able to introduce to you Sergeant Greg Kleinfelter, who is the Sergeant of the SROs, our School Resource Officers, and a proud Apollo alumnus of 87? 87. You can do the math. Right. Okay. And Officer Sarah Gangle, who is our School Resource Officer at North and Madison. And I'd like to turn it over to them at this point.
Hello, I am Sarah Gangle, and this is Sergeant Greg Kleinfelter. I appreciate being able to do this here. So who I worked with at North is Courtney Guck, and he served during our school year as the academic coach at North Junior High. He's well liked, and it's nice to see him be able to give back in unexpected ways. So on behalf of the St. Cloud Police Department, we are here to recognize Courtney Guck for a Citizen Award for the following event.
Let's bring them up here.
Courtney, you want to come up here? Man of many words. Hi, Courtney.
Hello.
It's good to see you. How was summer?
It was wonderful.
Good, good. All right, so on May 12, 2022, Guck was providing lunch supervision to one of the 3 lunches at North. At approximately 11:33 a.m., a student was sitting nearby laughing and talking with her friends. The student stood up, laughing, then suddenly her body language was seen in distress. She grabbed her neck area and began to choke. The lunchroom was currently filled with approximately 100 students who observed the incident. Guck was standing approximately 6 feet away, observed the crisis, and instantly walked over and began to administer 8 Heimlich maneuvers on the student. There was a small face-to-face interaction between the student and Guck. Guck administered 2 more Heimlich maneuvers, and the object substance was dislodged from her throat. School video surveillance captures the student actively choking for approximately a minute and a half. Nearby staff had contacted 911, however, the incident was resolved before our dispatcher could gather any detailed information on the call. Due to Courtney's calm and swift action, the student was able to regain normal breathing, which could have been a devastating event. Congratulations, Courtney.
Thank you so much.
I also have for you, so just everything that we use for our police department, and then we choose to, that's what choose to. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate the
you very
recognition.
much.
You're welcome. I'm not going to touch the button.
Amy, this is a tough act to follow. I'm sorry. Okay, moving on to discussion and action items. Our first action item for tonight is adult lunch price increase presented by Amy Scalarud, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam. So this is actually the second time that we're talking about lunch prices, and I'll give a little background on that. The board did approve our 22-23 lunch prices in June. However, MDE annually sets a minimum price for adult lunches. The intention of that really is to ensure, it's a federal requirement to ensure that we aren't using state or federal funds that are intended for student meals to subsidize or lower the cost of adult lunches. And so this is something that's always been a requirement. Our prices have always been set high enough that we've met that minimum and not had an issue. However, with rising food and labor costs, this is based on a national average food price index. And so there was a significant jump in that price this year. And we're now below that minimum with the price that the board approved previously for adult lunches, which was $4.25. The new minimum is $4.95. Our recommendation, which Board Finance Committee has reviewed, is to set the lunch price at $5 just for ease of transactions, to have it be an even amount since it's so close to that as the minimum anyway. So that is the recommendation in front of you tonight.
Okay, any discussion at all? Al?
Amy, I just have a clarification on one of the things that was mentioned at Finance Committee. You had said that, we talked about portion sizes and for adult meals, and the comment was made that the adult meals are supposed to be the same as the kids' meals. Does that hold at all levels? I mean, I could understand that at the high school level, but is an adult meal in grade school supposed to be the same portion and size as what you would give to a grade school student, say a first grader?
So generally at the secondary level, they'll adjust, or at the elementary level, they would adjust that. So if, the portion size called for 6 chicken nuggets for elementary and 8 for secondary, they would serve the secondary portion. Now, it depends on what's on the menu. Not everything is always adjustable, depending on what the item is. But certainly if it's something that can be modified and adjusted, they do so that it's more reflective of a secondary meal.
And that is controlled or monitored by the state?
The meals, the
portion
portions,
sizes?
yes. Yep.
Because I still go back to, one of the concerns is we don't we don't have very many adult meals served. And I sometimes wonder if it doesn't just fall back on something as simple as portion size, or, you'd hate to purchase 2 meals or whatever, but.
And the one thing, it's generally the main entree that is portion size control. A lot of the other items, like the fruits or vegetables, even for students, there's more limitations on kind of the maximum protein and carbs and things like that. Fruits and vegetables are generally unlimited. And so sometimes, adults can adjust the portion size that way because those are more open-ended as they would be for a student
But
too.
what would MDE say that the justification is for the higher price then? And I'm just kind of asking questions because it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me.
And it's unfortunate because it's set based on a national average per meal cost. And there is also a similar calculation that's done for the student meal price, because really the intention is that both for adult price and paid lunches for families, that the intention is that the federal free and reduced reimbursements aren't subsidizing that. Now, that paid lunch equity tool that is required, we haven't had to use that tool because we have a significant fund balance in the food service fund, and we'll continue to have a significant fund balance probably for a number of years. So we're exempt from that requirement, and therefore I haven't looked at what that minimum student price is, but I suspect it's very similar to this new minimum adult price, that's what technically they would say we should be charging our families too. Now, obviously, if there's an exemption and we aren't forced to be putting forward those increases to paid student meals because we have a fund balance. That's obviously what our preference would be. But again, the unfortunate thing is that it's based on a national average. And so food costs and labor costs, particularly in other portions of the country, are significantly higher than what we actually realize and what our actual costs are. So I'm not really sure why this requirement exists in the way it does. It seems like it should be adjusted or that you could calculate it based on your actual costs. But unfortunately, we did reach out to MDE to see if there was any exception or requirement or variance or anything that they grant, and they said, no, you need to make sure you raise it so you're in compliance.
So how do our adults pay for the meal? Is it always in cash, or do they have the option to have an account like the students do?
They have an option to have an account. However, we do have a lot of visitors that come. So sometimes we have volunteers from different programs who will eat periodically. We'll have parents who sometimes come and eat, or staff who might be visiting, or somebody who might not necessarily be set up in the system and have an account. So we do see a fair amount of cash transactions as well. But they have both options.
I would just like to see us stay at that $4.95 just because it's already being raised. And everything is so expensive these days, which I would imagine is why this is going up because of food costs. But even 5 cents if you eat every day and it's our teachers over the long haul, I'd rather keep it at the price that is suggested rather than charging 5 cents more. So that's my 2 cents, 5 cents, if you will.
Nice catch.
I just want to tell Natalie that the 5 cents do matter when we do math and the problems that they create in having to give change for 5 cents. And it's just that it's just that ease that is there, that is put there. And I come from Colombia, where a country where you actually legally can round numbers for when you make payments. And it's just because it just creates just an accounting issue.
The ring of just move it up to $5. I understand it's such it seems like such a pittance of an amount, but for people who earn pretty good incomes, it may not be. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Is it on now? Yeah. Oh, I think I was being kind of sheepish about this whole thing. I mean, for people that earn good incomes, it seems like an absurdity to worry about it. But it's the concept of saying, well, just make it $5 that's troubling, not the amount. It's just the thing that says that just make it, just round it up to $5. Yeah, am I making any sense at all? It just bothers me a bit.
My 5 cents is that we've been living in a time where I can't wrap my mind around how we have a coin shortage, but somehow we do. And so you're going through these self-checkouts at Colburn's, and just now that you can have cash back. So I think it's labor intensive to, who's getting these nickels and who's dealing with this change and running to the bank and getting it, that it's more of a headache than, maybe you could put a roll of nickels there and, chip them in. I think it would be a lot of labor to always making sure that we are able to give that change back, as Monica was talking about, that it's easier to round it up. Natalie?
What was the previous price? Was it $4.25?
Yes, so the previous board approved price was $4.25.
Okay, so I don't think that giving change back will matter that much in my Since we're already redoing it, it's just a different type of change.
Okay, any other discussions? Scott?
I assume that we're done with the free lunch that we had during the COVID programs.
Yes, and the free lunch was only for students, so staff were not allowed to eat the lunches at no cost. That was an only student provision. But you're correct, we are back to the normal pre-COVID food service operations, so families will need to complete the application for benefits to receive free meals.
Okay. I'll go $5.
Okay, well, in one way or another, I'm looking for a motion to move forward, if there's any further discussion.
I move to approve the recommendation from finance.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Monica, a second by Scott. Dr. Green, can you please call roll?
Monica Segura Schwartz,
Yes.
Scott Andreasen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
No.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Zach Dorhold,
Yes.
Les Green is no, Shannon Hawes.
Yes. Okay, motion passes 5-2. Moving on to our next action item. Thank you, Amy. We're going through a third reading of, to approve Board Policy 698, formerly 614, Comprehensive Balanced Approach to District-Wide Student Assessment Plan. And it is presented tonight by Donna Roper, Executive Director of Research, Assessments, and Enrollment, and Lori Posch, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning.
Thank you, Chair Haas and Superintendent Putnam, board members. This is a third reading of Policy 698, District-Wide Comprehensive Balanced Assessment Plan. We did, since the last time we met, go back and take another read through the policy. We did, as was suggested, reach out to our colleague, Executive Director Tracy Bowe, to read through and give us some additional feedback. And I think both Executive Posch and I also reflected on some of the questions that were raised around, is this a necessary policy? And have concluded that we believe that this, at this time, is a necessary policy. Executive Director Bowe suggested one minor, some wording change, but other than that, we're here this evening to just see if there are any other questions that we can answer for you. The minor change was just some wording related to exceptions to the plan. And so if you keep scrolling and keep scrolling, for you. And it was just clearer to say that any request for an exception or addition, the change was or addition to the plan must be made to the superintendent. So.
Okay, any further discussion? This is a third reading on this. Yep. Does anybody,
So, Madam Chair, I would move that we approve Board Policy 698 as shown.
okay, I have a motion by Al, a second by Natalie. Any further discussion? Scott?
At one time, they were talking about removing some of the procedures into the procedure manual rather than the policy manual. Was that done?
Yes, the procedures are embedded. The old policy was very procedural, and it's embedded in here, and it's taken care of with this policy. Yes.
Thank you.
So, kind of a technical question. We're voting to approve this policy, but we have to, what is it called? Take out the policy?
So this policy will replace policy 614, the testing plan procedures. Yep.
Okay, so we have, a point of order, so we have to make another motion?
I think the question is, when we approve 698, are we also approving removing 614?
614 becomes embedded in 698, and 614 goes away because the procedures are embedded within. Yep.
Okay.
So as a board procedure, we do need to repeal the policy, so we need another motion after this one.
Can I just amend my
Sure.
motion? Madam Chair, I would like to amend my motion to approve policy 698 as shown and remove policy 614.
Second.
Do you like that, Monica? Is that good? Appreciate it. Okay. All right, we have a motion by Al and a second by Natalie. Dr. Green, will you please call roll?
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Scott Andreasen, Zach Dorholt,
Yes.
Les Green is yes, Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that everybody?
Okay, next, we're moving on to a discussion item. This is the 2022-2023 Return to Schools presentation, and it's being presented by the Executive Leadership Cabinet Team. And Jan says I don't have to read everybody's names right here.
You do not. Thank you. You'll get to see all of our beautiful faces. Members of the Board of Education and our public audience viewing from home. Tonight, our cabinet team will provide an overview of how each department is preparing for our school year. The presentation is intended to be a survey of the work of each of our departments and not a deep dive into specific topics. Though we certainly would be glad to revisit any specific focus or content in a deep way at your request at a later board meeting in one of our upcoming weeks. So please just let us know if that's something that you request as we continue our survey. We do have a lot to cover, and we would kindly request that we hold questions to the end of the presentation. So I get the distinct pleasure tonight of sharing what the district as a leadership team is doing to prepare for the school year. And what we're preparing is to align and focus our efforts. We've simplified our goals for the school year into two elements: to create a safe, positive, and engaged climate and culture, and to increase academic outcomes for all of our students. When we were talking about these two goals, Assistant Superintendent Nelson wisely suggested that we define them. So we did just that, and I appreciate it. It's important to be clear about language. So what we mean when we say we want to increase academic outcomes for students are the five outcomes set by the world's best workforce, which will look very familiar because these undergird our strategic plan. But for those of you at home who can't see the tiny writing, what we mean when we say we want to increase or we will increase academic outcomes for students are we're going to make growth in these areas, that all students are prepared for kindergarten, all students show growth in reading and math, all gaps are based on who our students are closed. All students are career or college ready at high school graduation, and all students graduate from college. Everything we've done so far and that we plan to do and that you'll hear about tonight is aligned with these two focus goals. So, what is the district leadership doing to ensure a safe, caring, and engaged climate and culture? I want to talk about two strategies tonight, very briefly. First is that we've had 2 engagement opportunities with our law enforcement partners. I was joking that we're going to give them an office because we've seen them a lot lately. We've been preparing with the jurisdictions around us, and including St. Cloud and Waite Park, St. Joseph, Clearwater, St. Augusta, to make sure that we are prepared to have a safe school environment, including emergency response. We've done an emergency response training, and then making sure that we're providing wraparound services for our students who are showing us that they need additional supports. We're also excited about a new initiative this year where our entire district leadership team is going to be going out to do welcome visits to all of our new families. So we'll be out door knocking, visiting all of our kindergarten families, and then any students who are new to our district, grades 1 through 12. And if we have enough staff during that day, if not, we have enough bags to go visit our students who could be ours, and that we, of course, want to welcome them to or back to our district. And I just want to take a quick moment. Carol is going to show you one of our swag bags. Is this an elementary bag? This is one of our elementary bags. And as she shows you some of the things inside it, and I want to give a huge shout out to Carol and her team, Ion Communications. They've done a beautiful job putting this together. We are exceptionally proud that some of our materials come from local authors and artists. And so Carol, if you would just share what is in those bags so people who from home can see that.
Okay, so in each bag, we have a welcome letter with a QR code that will get us to the district website, and so families will be able to access all of the different pieces that we offer. So that's a fun welcome. And then we have a 742 water bottle for every student. This is one of my favorites. This is a fidget bracelet, actually, that kids can wear, and it has pop holes on it, and kids like to pop those in and out. That's really fun. And then for all of our students, our elementary students, we have beautiful literature that's going into the bag. Ian's group in Equity and Lori Posh in Learning and Teaching had picked out some just beautiful literature for every student. And so we have multiple kinds of books that can go out. And so we're very excited to pack all of that. This is just a fun one called In the Mirror. So nice.
Thank you, Carol. And for our secondary students, they will be getting those same items, but instead of a book, they will be getting affirmation cards that were designed by a local artist. You can see them up here on the screen in the bottom corner. And again, those up on the slide, there are 2 of the other books that we are giving out to our students. Again, we've clustered those by age, so an age range. So K books are separate from, say, grades 3 through 5. But our affirmation cards at the bottom say a really positive affirmation. One of those is "My life matters." It's written in English and Somali, and when you turn it over, it says "Your life matters." So we are giving those out to each of our families. Very excited about this opportunity to connect with our community.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Dr. Putnam, and members of the board. Assistant Superintendent Nelson and I have the opportunity to share a little bit about what our schools will be doing to provide for a safe and caring and engaged environment as we start out our school years. Our schools have been planning for our return and have wonderful plans to welcome our students back for the 2022-23 school year. Our high schools will host their open house on August 29th. South and North have family conferences and student goal setting on August 30th. And family goal setting conferences at the elementaries are scheduled for Wednesday, August 31st, and Tuesday, September 6th.
Another really welcoming event that we have in our secondary schools, in our middle schools, it's called WEB, Where Everyone Belongs, and Link Crew is in our high schools. We know that those 2 grade levels can be very emotional, stressful times for kids, and so these are student-led welcomes where we bring those grade levels in on September 6th, and they are welcomed to build relationships with each other, to feel safe at school, and to just connect with some kids that are already part of the building.
Also, during our first 6 weeks of school, we strategically and explicitly engage all learners in learning those expected behaviors. The first 6 weeks of school are focused on establishing the rituals and routines for our schools. We will continue to teach and practice these behaviors throughout the calendar year, and we also focus on community and building relationship, as we know that this is really important and a significant part of learning and building relationships. We know that expectations that are explicitly taught, modeled, practiced, and reinforced will continue throughout the school year.
And I know you're familiar with our positive behavior interventions and supports, our PBIS matrix. It is such an important part of what we do because it's a proactive step that we take where we're assisting students in understanding those school-wide expectations, explicitly teaching those expectations, and then reinforcing those. And Carol talked about that a little bit in her presentation, one of our previous board meetings, about our matrix and how we use those words to help kids remember what they should be doing in every space in the school.
Okay, next I'm going to talk a little bit about student services and what we have going on new this fall. Some of this you heard again a few weeks ago, but just a reminder, conscious discipline. We received a grant and we were able to hire a conscious discipline coach. And so that person will be able to go out in schools and help, and this is focused on elementary school now for conscious discipline. And so that person will be able to go out and help teachers directly with support and classroom management within their environment. And then restorative practices. We started our restorative practices training for secondary schools in June, and we have a follow-up coming in early October to help schools learn how to do the circle part of restorative practices. But a reminder that this restorative practices is the embedded piece of restorative practices. So school-wide, we're going to use strategies that embeds that restorative piece throughout. Also, mental health services, we've increased our mental health services. We've had Greater Minnesota support, we've had our school counselors, school social workers, all of those great support staff have been part of our schools in the past, and we have hired additionally what is called mental health advocates this year. So they will function as a resource for students not only in school, but to help them also align resources in the community as well if that's needed. And then also new this year is our Seizure Protocol. You may not have heard of this one before, but any student that is known with a health concern of having seizures, we are to develop a plan around, and that part is not new. We've always had a plan, but the new part is that every single adult that is in the building that comes in contact with that student is taught and familiar with that plan. So if there were emergency medications, every person would know how to administer that and work with the student. And so that is something new, and we have that underway already. In addition then, I love this big toothbrush on here. This is one of the most exciting pieces, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But in addition to all those other pieces, we have our safe and supportive school plans, and so schools develop this every year in addition with that PBIS matrix that they're working on. And so it outlines how they're going to support kids in all situations. Our CAP program, you also heard about this one from me, a community accountability and prevention. We have moved that program. It was at Westwood Elementary, and it now will be at our Roosevelt site. And we will be able to take on a few more kids than what we have done in the past. But we've also hired more staff to support our kids, mostly with our physical aggression. And so if we have kids that are in fights or may have been involved in some kind of an assault or something, we will have mental health support. And so they're going to be spending a few more days at CAP so we can dig underneath that behavior to figure out what's going on with that student and help support their transition back to their general ed site. We also, on the back side of Roosevelt, at the Boys and Girls Club behind Roosevelt, we'll have our new RISE program. And RISE is our middle level alternative program. And so they will be able to share resources back and forth and utilize the great staff that are going to be in both locations to support kids, which is fabulous. Then children's dental, the big toothbrush. And so the exciting news is that we're going to have children's dental, so free access to dental services at every single site this year. It used to be just at a few elementaries, and this year we have expanded it as we've come back from the pandemic. We have worked to spread that into schools last year, and then this year will be at every single site. And then our healthy schools. So this summer we rolled into the school year with some COVID plans that included having students that had tested positive for COVID, that they would follow our general wellness guidelines or general illness guidelines. And that has worked really well for us over the summer. And so we're going to continue those plans into the fall. And if a child presents COVID positive, we will support them with our general illness wellness guidelines and ask them to follow up with their care provider to see what the suggestion is from their care provider about being able to attend school and follow through on activities.
As we prepare for the upcoming school year, when we look at facilities, transportation, and nutrition, with facilities, as you know, and approved the controlled entrance out at Clearview Elementary, that's coming along nice. We continue to add controlled entrances with the great support from the Board of Education. But we know that having a controlled entrance isn't a security and safety solution. It's a comprehensive approach. And so this year, along with that, we'll be refreshing our staff IDs. If you look at my ID, I had a little bit more hair and it wasn't as gray, so we need to update those so that we know who's in our buildings. And we're looking at going with different colors each year so that it's easily identifiable. We're also going to be reviewing our Raptor system, which is our visitor check-in system, just to review our protocols to make sure that we're doing everything we can to know who's in the building and keep our students safe. Dr. Putnam talked about the emergency response a little bit, the training that we've been doing with our administrative staff, with our local law enforcement agencies. We have 2 more opportunities coming up. We have one on August 29th where local law enforcement, that includes St. Cloud, St. Joseph, Way Park, and Sherburne County, will be working with all of our staff, our licensed and non-licensed staff in the schools, talking about emergency protocols and the language we use when we're referring to emergencies. On September 21st, I'll be back and I'll do a more comprehensive review of all of the summer projects that we did. Typically at this meeting, we talk about the things that may impede the start of the school year. I'm happy to report we don't have any major disruptions. We don't have any road projects that are out of our control. We do have a few projects that still need to be finished up. If you've driven by north, we have some landscaping to do there yet. We had a storm basin that last week decided to settle into the ground a little bit too far, so we need to replace that at north. That won't be done by the start of school, but both those projects there will be fenced off, and it should not hamper the arrival or dismissal of students. Catherine Johnson Education Center is coming along nicely. The landscaping will be the last thing we do. That won't be done by the start of school, but it will be ready for students on day 1. If you've driven by there or Clearview, you'll notice there's a lot of dirt being moved. And like me, you're probably saying, wow, will that parking lot be done? We are on target to have those completed, weather permitting, but the weather's looking good for us. And then the last thing, it's really not a grounds thing, but it is. We ordered new ovens for Discovery, Westwood, and Madison. We've run into some supply chain issues. They won't be in, but we do have our older ovens still hooked up, so we'll be able to make sure everyone's fed. With transportation, we're doing some training with our drivers. We're going to be training with more training on PBIS. They'll be working with some of our folks from Student Services on verbal de-escalation techniques. And then we'll be doing the required annual first aid training as well. Our assistant superintendents have been working with our building principals to arrange for behavioral support if we need that on the buses. And so we'll have a plan ready for that. And then with the routing this year, there was a conscious effort to try to reduce ride time. The shorter that students are on the bus, the better for behavior, the better for getting our students to and from school. And for nutritional services, we will be doing some menu refreshing. Our supervisor of nutritional services is working with some student groups so students can have input in menu planning. A la carte is back. We will be starting that in October at the secondary schools. As we have said a number of times, but I want to say it again so that we keep saying it, the free meals have been discontinued, and so we're really pushing to get the educational benefits, what we used to call the free and reduced lunch applications, out there and filled out. And this year, we still have some classrooms that will, in the elementary schools, that will be having breakfast in the classroom. That was a pre-COVID practice. It was to increase instructional time. But all lunches in all of our schools will be back in the cafeteria this year.
Okay. I'm excited to report on all of the activity that's been running through Human Resources this summer. When other corners of the district get a little bit quieter, Human Resources revs up. And so since June, we have been laser targeted on hiring with the goal to be fully staffed in all of our positions for this year. And those of you that are out there in the labor world in the last couple of years know that was no easy task. I'm super excited to say that the cooperation that we've had between my team and the departments and the schools has really made this a reality for us. So you can see that we have had over about 200 hires between licensed and non-licensed staff. And so all of those folks needed to make it through a hiring process and through our application system, screened, interviewed, selected, and then onboarded. And that's been underway throughout the summer. One of the areas that we really targeted this year was special education paras, knowing that that has been one of our, really our most difficult areas to fill in the past, I would say, 5 years. We've been 40 to 50 paras down throughout the school year, which creates all sorts of stresses in our schools and doesn't give our students the support that they need. And so my team, we reorganized our team at the start of the summer to dedicate 2 staff members full-time to recruitment and retention. I want to give a shout out to Sandy Hackenmuller, who worked phones like she was on the floor of the Chicago stock market all summer. As soon as a name came in, she was calling and offering them positions in any place in this district that they wanted to be, but really targeting paraeducators. And so I'm super excited to say that you see on that opening side, it says paraeducators 18. We started at about 51, and we celebrated every time we went down, into the 40s, now the 30s, and now the 20s. And so this week we went down into the teens, and you see that little 11, that's because we have 11 interviews scheduled. So I'm really excited that we will be fully staffed with paraeducators as we start our school year, which will make a huge difference in all of our schools. Below that, you see Nutritional Services, which was an area of concern last week. That was up to 15 openings. It's down to 10, and we interviewed in our Wednesday walk-ins today 7 people that are qualified and ready to go. So I'm hopeful that, again, we will see many of those positions filled and ready to go as we begin to start the school year. In addition to Sandy, I want to shout out to Robin Rabatzik, because as soon as Sandy got them in, we had to get them oriented. And orientation this year went back gratefully to in-person orientation. So virtual orientation was, what we had to do during COVID. But I think we all understood that it didn't give us the connection we wanted or the culture building that we needed with staff. And I think it contributed to higher turnover as people didn't have that face-to-face connection with us as they started their work. And so we really retooled orientation, and that's a much richer process now, where in addition to filling out your basic required forms, we're we're also doing some culture building, talking about Orange Frog and positive climate and personality strengths and gifts, and really getting staff prepared to start the school year, understanding how important the work is that we do and how important they are to our success. So that has been going just great. The next slide is really going back to our strategic plan focus area on positive culture and climate. Objective 1.2 says that we will foster a mission-driven culture where staff are supported to thrive and deliver exceptional outcomes for our students. That requires us to hone in and focus. And so when we met with all of our district leaders last week, we looked at the research around building engaged schools, and there's some really good research that says out of all of the things that you would measure or pay attention to as you think about engagement of staff, because highly engaged staff give us those outcomes for students. These are the 12 most important indicators. And so as we begin the school year, our administrative team will be focused on how to make sure that staff across the district are experiencing these indicators and could answer positively that these are present in our schools and in our departments, and we'll be doing that work throughout the school year. Again, we know that the research is really clear that right down to students passing tests, if we have staff that are more engaged, students will do better. And of course, it helps us with retention of staff as well. Lastly, while the administrators will be focusing on creating those conditions for engagement, we really are focusing on staff commitment, every individual employee's commitment to positive culture and engagement. And so we have created a new module in our Standards for Success system. That's our employee evaluation system that we use. And every single employee will have a new module that they'll have to respond to this year. At the start of the school year, they will do reflections and commitments in two areas. First, what is your commitment to your personal mindset, personal positive mindset, and how will you, face challenge and stress as that arises during the school year, so that we're thinking in advance about what are those strategies. Board members know that we started about 3 years ago, right before the pandemic started, with the Happiness Advantage strategies and the Orange Frog strategies. And so we've been teaching a lot of those tools over the years, and now we're really focusing it in on what is the outcome we're seeking. It's not about happiness. Happiness is a byproduct and one that we wish for all of our employees, but the focus is positive engagement and culture, because again, we know that that's the thing that will produce the outcomes we need for students. And so each staff member will reflect on their personal mindset and their commitments, and then also what are their commitments to their collective, collaborative teaming efforts to maintain that positive team environment inside their schools or departments. They'll do those commitments at the start of the year, and then 3 times during the year they will self-assess on this rubric that you see. And then at the end of the year, administrators and supervisors, as part of their summative, will assess that area for each staff member as well. So I think the long and the short of this work is that we're targeting that positive engagement, but we're doing it in a very specific way that will be measurable and manageable, and something that both employees can self-monitor, and supervisors will be thinking about how they create those conditions to support staff in that process. So I'm hopeful that Donna will be supporting us also in gathering data around that throughout the year, and that those efforts will really pay off in more positive cultures inside all of our schools. That's the update from HR.
I'm going to get that figured out. So as far as what's happening in the Welcome Center when it comes to safe, caring, and engaging spaces, everybody here may know this, but as an opportunity to share with our community who may be watching, we do have extended hours. We're open until 7 p.m. Mondays through Wednesday now for the entire month of August, and on Saturdays from 10 to 2. And we have some amazing enrollment specialists waiting to get your little ones enrolled in school, so come on down. I want to just let everyone know that we're doing a lot more online applications than we ever have. Everyone loves it. The staff love it. The parents eventually love it, and we're saving people who are capable of doing some things electronically and maybe from afar, one step of having to drive down here. And so we are hearing a lot of appreciation for some of those enhancements that we're making. The space in our Welcome Center has been arranged to allow families and especially children a more welcoming place to come and be while their parents are doing that important work of getting them enrolled. And so I want to give a shout out to the people in the Welcome Center doing all the really hard work, because I'm really not doing any of it. They are doing all of it, and they're doing such a wonderful job. The next thing we hope to get out on our website really soon are some of our how-to videos for some of the electronic forms, and in multiple languages, Spanish and Somali in particular, but we're looking at ways to even do it in other languages if we can find helpers to get those things translated. So that's what's happening in the Welcome Center.
Hello, I'm Carissa Hopkins-Will, Communications Coordinator for District 742.
Hey, I am Ryan Unger, Visual Communications Specialist, and to share with you what we've been working on to ensure that our team that are returned to school is safe, caring, and engaging. Hopefully by now you've seen our new website design. We are very proud of it.
So on the website, we have created spaces and resources for our families so that they can easily access all of the resources that they need to get their kids ready and prepared to come back to school. And that includes enrollment, the free and reduced lunch, or otherwise known as educational benefits applications, the school start and dismissal times, the calendar events, school supply lists, before and after school care, and as well as our updated return to school guide, which will be coming soon on the website. Some of our other strategies, social media. We've got a return to school campaign that is giving out reminders for, again, educational benefits application, because we really want to push that this year. Also, the device agreements for secondary families, that they get those signed so they can get their devices coming back into school. We also want to ask our families to share their photos of their students on the first day of school so that we can publish those and see those smiling faces of all of those kids coming back to school. We also, of course, will be sharing our own first day of school photos. So in addition to that, we also have media alerts, Peach Jar flyers that will be going out to families as well. Our monthly 742 newsletter just went out this last week, and that included a checklist for our families so that they had in a one-stop on the newsletter to make sure that they've got all the things lined up and ready for school to start. And then we also have our Community Connections publication. That is the flip side of the Community Education Catalog if you've not seen it yet. And that's the opportunity for our community to read and learn about our schools and programs.
And this year we also had our administrators out door knocking to welcome new families, which is really a nice way to get everyone involved. And we included welcome letters and 742 Together swag. Every summer also we are at Summertime by George, greeting families, answering questions, and kind of just getting everyone excited.
So on August 30th, we are having the Great 742 Get Together. It is the welcome back kickoff for all of our staff, our community partners, and sponsors. So it's going to be a great day.
And we are also doing welcome back sky alerts. They will be sent out to staff and families from the superintendent, welcoming them back to the new school year. Oh. We're helping to promote coffee and conversations with Superintendent Putnam. That will begin this Friday, and we will be there to capture that with some photos.
Thank you. And now we're going to transition to our focus goal 2, which is increase academic outcomes. And the way our district leadership team has been engaging around that as we prepare is that each of our team members they identified one of those academic outcomes that they were going to personally invest in and create some professional goals and strategies around. They partnered up with the other folks who had grabbed hold of the same thing, and we're going to revisit that several times throughout the year as a district leadership team. And then those will also run through our continuous improvement plans, which you'll hear about shortly. Each of our departments, including the superintendent's office, has developed those continuous improvement plans, and our goal as a district leadership team is to really intertwine, support one another. So directors being out in schools, executive directors and cabinet being out in schools, and then schools supporting us so that we are really one aligned effort at increasing outcomes, positive outcomes for our students.
As Dr. Putnam mentioned, increasing academic outcomes doesn't happen by one person, one department, one school. It really takes all of us, and that includes our community. So when we look at learning and teaching, I had a whole list full of things to share with you, and as I looked through and talked with other members, we realized there really was a lot of overlap. So we worked together to try to narrow it into categories. So when we think about things that learning and teaching specifically is working on this year with our preschool and our elementary students and teachers, we're really focusing on what research talks about for a guaranteed and viable curriculum, ensuring that all of our students are receiving information, the same types of lessons, not taking away the art from the teachers, but keeping that science included for them. And that will be at our secondary as well. At our elementary, we are continuing to work on literacy and numeracy skills, and we have updated many of the lessons in both our literacy and our numeracy core content, core information. And then at our elementary school, we will be piloting new math resources. I mentioned to you earlier that our publisher said that last year was the last year we were able to receive and purchase the information for math. So we needed to rev up and speed up that process. Our teachers are excited about the pilots that they are going to be doing this year. And we also have new science resources that will be piloted as well, along with the standards revision for science. And I have on here, yep, it is. We have
Normally, we just do a couple of schools, but this is all.
We have reps from every building. I need to go back and double check. Some of our people either had moved on or had switched buildings, so I don't have the exact list, but at one point we had every building who had a pilot teacher.
Okay.
And this is an error. I have piloting EL resources. We actually are implementing EL resources this year at both elementary and at secondary. For literacy at preschool and elementary, we're taking a close look at some of our common instructional types. So what we mean by that, we sometimes talk about what's tight and what's loose. So what do we expect to happen in every classroom? And what are some of those looses that are left up to teacher discretion? So we're really working on tightening up those tights this year. And then a refocus on common assessments at our elementary based on our new resources, based on some of the standards updates. And then also, you were fortunate enough to participate with Marcy in a CRA math lesson. And at the request of our elementary principals and work that we looked at with our data, we are going to continue the training in CRA this year for our elementaries. A few things I didn't talk about for secondary. This year we have full implementation of our new language arts resources. Last year we did a soft implementation. Our teachers who were piloting, trying some things out, and this year that will be fully rolled out. We also have a new 6th grade science resource, again in alignment with the new science standards. And two other ones that I didn't talk about with elementary. Increased opportunities for student voice. We've been talking about that a lot over the last couple of months, and this is an area that's really important to me in terms of our learning and teaching, that we really increase the opportunities for students to have more input in resource development, in lessons, in everything involved with learning and teaching. And then our secondary schools are also taking a close look, and I think Kay is going to talk about this a little bit more in hers, on academic interventions and how do we serve the students, how do we fill in some of those gaps that might exist for our students.
Hey, thanks, Lori. Well, those academic interventions, we learn about those by utilizing that MTSS process, which is first on my list. And so MTSS, again, stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. And so we are working to be really consistent across the district at all sites that we are utilizing that process in an efficient and an effective way and identifying interventions for students that can support their academic and behavioral growth. Also, we are looking to increase our support with dyslexia. So we now have Sunday curriculum in all of our elementary schools, in our middle schools, and we have added it's called the Science of Reading class into the high schools. We have a dyslexia specialist whom you may have met before, Katie Schneider. And again, she continues to work across the district to provide more instructional pieces, and we have more teachers trained in the instructional components than we ever have before, which is great. This year, we have our lead nurse now became a supervisor of health services. We have had a large number of health services staff turnover in terms of nurses coming and going. They have had lots of options, as you know, in different medical facilities. And so with that, we really needed consistent training of our health staff. And so Jessica Voss will serve as our health services supervisor this year, who can support that training. And then I talked a little earlier about those Section 504 plans, those IHPs, individual health plans, that now the consideration is that kids perhaps having a seizure disorder or perhaps having a different disability or a disorder that affects their school day significantly, that not only are they on an individual health plan, but they also are on a Section 504 plan for additional support if needed throughout their school day. On the special education side of things, our goal this year is to instruct all of our special education teachers in 22 high leverage strategies that work for all students. So we can build that consistency on what's really good for all students. And these high leverage practices would really be good for general education students as well, but we've outlined them specifically as 22 strategies for special education students or students who are served in special education. We're really excited about that. We also have added lead teachers this year to support our instructional and behavioral outcomes at schools. And those special education lead teachers are going to serve as mentors as well to our Tier 1 teachers and our probationary teachers at the site. And so we can dig down deeply and have someone on site right away to support in case there is a question or an incident. They'll be there to help that out. Behavior resource specialist. This is a new position, not on the general education side, but on the special education side this year. We've had them on the general education side to support our student support rooms. They are a trained person working in mental health. And so we decided that we were going to also offer that for our students served in special education so that there will be a separate space for students if they are working on regulation skills, if they're working on coping skills, if they're taking a proactive break, that they can work with the behavior resource specialists in a separate space. And I just want to give a big shout out to New Teacher Academy. That's going on this week, and it has been amazing how many teachers have participated in that and how many of our staff have been working to train teachers this week. It has been incredible. So they have done not only our staff here internally, but our staff out in the buildings as well. We've had teachers come in, teachers with experience come in and help train. We have had lead teachers come in and train. We have had our directors and our supervisors all have done a lot of training this week, and it's been just a really great week. And then we have, in addition, we're going to have some due process nights. We have done this a couple of different ways in the past, and what we are going to be doing this year is we're offering professional development on, it's once a month throughout the year. So we're going to offer 2 hours of professional development. 1 hour is going to be that instructional component, and then 1 hour is going to focus on due process pieces. If you recall, we had a new due process software this last year called SpedForms, and so we're working really hard on those pieces and working really hard at teaching teachers how to write goals and objectives for students. And so that's what that time is going to be used for coming up. And then to prepare for this year, we had a training called Structured Teaching, and Structured Teaching is used mostly in our elementary schools, but it is a way to organize teaching for kids where kids do 3 different tasks, and then they switch to a different task. And then they'll go back to doing 3 structured, consistent tasks, and then they'll do another new task. And so it is one of those high leverage practices, and the training was very well received. And then I'm going to give another big shout out for the hiring, Tracy and her team, communications to get the word out, and people in the Student Services Department who have worked really hard at connecting with staff and getting them in the right spots that they are skilled at, and getting them onboarded and ready to go. And there's been lots of excitement around that. And so we will be staffed. Tracy said, maybe, if we will be. I said, don't say if, we are going to be staffed. And so we're going to be ready. And then Gary had mentioned earlier Katherine Johnson Education Center. We're very excited about this new opportunity to have our students who need some alternative programming at one site. And again, the sharing of resources, the sharing of insights and information, it's just going to be beautiful. And I welcome you all to come and take a tour. It really looks nice. And then the last one is our Journey expansion. And our Journey program is located at Roosevelt. Our Journey program has expanded. It was grades 9 through age 21, and it was for our students that needed individualized programming. So they might have been in a separate space, they might have required a separate communication system, etc. We've expanded it now to 4th grade, so it'll be starting in 4th grade to age 21. And gives kids the opportunity to get what they need at that location. So lots of new things happening.
So in addition to some of the things that Carol and Lori have shared with us this evening, this summer at the elementary level, we are replacing all of the student furniture at 7 of our 8 elementary schools. We know for our students that right school furniture that fits right contributes to their comfort and support for those students, and that'll add positively towards the students' ability to concentrate and work on their studies. At our preschools, we recognize the increased opportunity to attend preschool will aid students as they enter kindergarten. As you heard from our presentation by the St. Cloud Rotary, we are working right now to fill 96 preschool slots for our 3- and 4-year-olds, those slots sponsored by the Rotary. Our kindergarten play initiative will continue this year as our kindergarten teachers implement play-based learning that aligns with the best practices included in our instructional expectations handbook. At our elementary schools, we recognize that focused collaborative planning and co-teaching are both evidence-based strategies to improve academic outcomes for all students, and we will continue that this year. And lastly, on the elementary and preschool side, we'll also be continuing our efforts from last year to have aligned monthly professional development across all the elementary schools. This professional development is delivered by our building leaders, but it's provided in collaboration with our learning and teaching and student services and special education team to ensure that we are providing a guaranteed and viable curriculum.
And at the secondary schools, I'm just going to highlight some really innovative and responsive programming, new things that we have in place. And so the first item, the win time, what I need time, is a concept that's a regular practice in K-5, but this is new this year for our secondary schools. So win is a dedicated time during the school day for students to engage in a variety of academic settings based on their individual needs. So some students might be working with a teacher to understand a concept, a reteaching opportunity, to have the opportunity to retest or rework a project, to receive an intervention. They may be working with a teacher to extend their learning and provide an enrichment so that they can go above and beyond. Or for our high school students, it will be a time when some of them are participating in credit recovery. This is a big undertaking for both middle and high schools because there's a lot of logistics to work out because we're not in a self-contained classroom. So while there's some nervousness and there'll be some growth around those logistics, we are really thrilled to be offering this extra academic support for our students. Second up there, McKinley is going to be offering experiential learning opportunities for our kids on Fridays. And so students will be involved in community service. They might be doing some job shadowing, some type of internships, some partnering with some of our community partners who will be coming in and working with the kids. That will be every Friday afternoon. So that is going to be something to watch. They also have a career day planned with the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation coming up this fall. The third item, the school day credit recovery, is also a really unique and wonderful opportunity for our students who are credit deficient. And so this will work hand in hand with our night school credit recovery program, but kids will get an extra scoop during the day. And both Tech and Apollo have 6 teachers who are dedicated to this effort. And then the last bullet there, the cross-district collaboration. This is something that Dr. Putnam spearheaded last year, and we are committed, period.end, to really working across the sites to be as collaborative as we can, maintaining each school's uniqueness, but also ensuring what Mike and Lori were talking about with that guaranteed and viable curriculum is very important. And then lastly, just to touch on some of our activities. You heard a presentation from our activities department, so I just wanted to highlight again how they are really engaging and increasing participation and building leadership through their leadership academies that they are spearheading this year, and then opening up those opportunities for activities through our K-8 sampler, K-6 sampler, and our activities days for the other grade levels. So lots of exciting stuff in the works.
And to support and collaborate with all of these amazing individuals we've just heard and our school building principals, the REA department will be looking to support the how we do this work through its continuous improvement process. So we will be directly supporting a system of continuous improvement. We will be looking to help everyone who is building their plan gain clarity and understand what the shared work is as they set their goals to move the work forward, and providing supports for them to do the monitoring that is necessary to do to know that things are going in the right direction. And so we're really excited to partner with everybody in this highly collaborative work to not only help them identify and align their goals to the strategic initiatives, as you can see in the example plan provided, but to also just help them really think differently about the data they're collecting and the information that they're gleaning from all the different elements. And so the next slide just is a reiteration of some of the data protocols we've shared in earlier presentations. And we just want to, stress that we are going to be asking people who are looking at data to try and use some design thinking protocols as a way to really do it differently. So we're going to be providing sites with supports in how to do this, and helping them build in some feedback loops using data tools, dashboards, and systems that will help them monitor their progress along the way. This is a It's considered innovation, and you'll hear more about that, but we're going to do it with our data. We're going to really try to be innovative this year with our data, and we're looking forward to it.
At the Equity Department, we hope to increase student academic outcomes by improving access to literacy, capitalizing on community partnerships, and developing a seamless communication between our department and building leaders. The way we intend on building access to early childhood literacy tomorrow morning, from 7:30 to 9:30, we hope to create a community awareness on the value of early childhood literacy from birth to preschool. Currently, we have about 87. Scott became our 88, actually, this morning. What we're planning for 100 individuals to come and participate and listen to Arthur Rolnick as well as Todd Otis talk about the value of early childhood literacy. We also plan to capitalize on community partnership by creating proactive partnerships and engaging with our local businesses, universities, and colleges to empower our disadvantaged students to explore their endless opportunities and options. And finally, we hope to bridge communication with building leaders, teachers, staff, families, and students through our educational equity outreach coordinator positions to facilitate access to academic success, as well as the transition between home culture and school culture.
Okay, taking a look at technology and innovation. I'll start with technology quickly. Our district technology support members, two of whom are sitting behind me, have done just this outstanding job this summer of getting our students ready for, or the devices ready, excuse me, for our students to return. They've spent a lot of time not just on the devices themselves, but our team has worked on infrastructure, security, safety, just a whole host of areas. And this week we were able to give out just over 100 laptops to our new teachers that are arriving so that they were able to connect with the instructional supports that they needed to have a successful start. So we've got that for the technology side. The innovation piece, we're taking a look at a couple of key areas. We've already mentioned a couple of times, you've heard student voice. And so we're looking at these ways that we can incorporate our students into real conversations around real challenges. And that's been happening for a long time. School's been doing that for decades. This is just looking at some different ways that we can get their ideas and help them build those capacities within those leadership roles. Working, like I said, working in teams to explore potential solutions, and then expanding that voice and learning, taking a look at not just their ideas, but also in the classroom where they're able to give their ideas, ask deep questions in maybe different ways. And so there's some exciting ideas that are starting to grow in those areas. In terms of our staff, that being principals and teachers and support staff, looking at innovation teams and instruction. So the innovation team is kind of already started. We cheated a bit and started that in June instead of waiting for 2022. But I mentioned at earlier board meetings, we had about 50-some teachers on June 7th that started the process. We continue to get results and emails back saying, yep, I want to continue this. A few questions have been asked, like what's this going to look like? And that's the exciting part, is we're going to build it together. I want to emphasize that this is not a committee, this is a community. And there's a difference. And so that's what we're looking to build, is a community of innovative lead learners, you want to call them that, teachers, around what are some new ways that they can connect with and engage their students, and equally as important as each other. So I'm gonna coin a phrase that Gary Ganji gave me a little while ago, that I copyright Gary Ganji, is we're moving from integration to innovation. And so that's a phrase that he's challenged me with, is moving away from our staff looking at our department as being about the devices, about the tools, and like how do you use a MacBook, how to use an iPad, how to use those kind of things, to thinking differently about instruction, thinking differently about student voice. So we've got some really exciting things ahead of us here. And then same as the students, we're looking at ways that we can also challenge our teachers around those authentic needs and questions and best practices and new practices, and best solutions. And the key there is looking for those ways that our ideas about how to make 742 an even better place, an even more engaging place than it already obviously is, it can come from anyone, and that means anyone. That can mean a teacher, it can mean support staff, administrator, anyone, maybe even a school board member can bring ideas forth in potential crowdsourcing that we're looking at right now. So, and then finally, our integration coaches, again, going back to Gary's line with integration innovation, we're looking to kind of rethink and rework what we used to call our tech integrationists, and now we're exploring innovation coaches to align with academic coaches. And these folks are teachers and they're practitioners, and they will really focus around building those foundations with early adopters, meaning the people that are already exploring these ideas and looking for those new ways to just continue growth. And then also looking at our new teachers. We know that we can really get benefits when we are able to connect with those folks when they're first coming in and build that culture of innovation from the very beginning. So we got some fun stuff coming up.
Community education is extremely excited about this fall. We've started Community Connections, and that's a community wellness group that meets once a week at North to build community wellness through cooking and sharing a meal together and having guest speakers talk about various topics related to health and happiness. It's gone over very well. We hope to expand it and continue. Our enhanced and growing programs, as you can see with our middle picture there, we really focus on STEAM and robotics and after-school planning for students. We also are looking at helping with the sampler programs this year. That'll be something new. And as always, our fine arts program, our youth choir is coming back. Our orchestra program in the summer, I think, is second to none in the area. So we continue to enhance that. And our fall registrations have started for our adult learners, and I hope you all got your brochure in the mail. I know Scott did. He talked to me about it already. And that is strictly just to show the community everything we have to offer for our adult learners, and then they'll come in and register later. And then in a couple weeks, you'll get your community ed brochure, of which I know that Chairperson Haas might be signing up for a certain language class that currently has 20 people enrolled. So thank you. It's our second session, and it's taught by somebody in our equity department. So it's truly awesome. So thank you for the idea, and we'll continue to grow.
All right. Finally, we wanted to introduce and welcome the new superintendent, Lori Putnam, to be a cornerstone to our Return to School campaign for staff and families. I think you'd all agree she does an excellent job of explaining why she chooses to do the important work of our school district every day. And we made a cute little video to introduce her.
Authentic engagement, authentic conversation. When people are able and willing to be vulnerable, they inspire me. Being able to have those direct conversations about things, whether it's how much we love watching students grow and learn, or it's love of animals. I'm a big dog fan. Things that really touch people's heart. That's what inspires me. The things I love doesn't mean that we always get along. But we are a chosen family. People choose to come here, they choose to stay here, and I'm grateful for that. They choose to love our students. Everybody who walks through our doors is this community loves that they care about our students and they care about our schools and they show up for us. Success, higher ed partners about our students, and we in turn care about our community, and so that's one of the things I'm proud of. To do the job that I do is first and foremost that I love our students. To have the opportunity to be part of true, to fulfill their hopes and set them on a path to success is such an amazing opportunity. Things that give me hope are our 742 family. When we take the time to listen to our students and we take the time to listen to our staff, they collectively have the answers to any of our struggles. I think 742 offers a job of help make parents' dreams for their children come true. If I had a slogan, it would be every kid, every day. That is our commitment, that we are can of every. We are 742 together. So I just want to thank this amazing team who has done an incredible amount of work and heart work and thinking work, and they've done it in collaboration, and I couldn't ask for better. And so I just want to thank you guys and then open it up to the Board of Education for any questions, comments, or feedback you may have.
Okay. Yes, that was, wow, what teamwork. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Scott, and then Natalie?
I was looking the other day at four-year graduation rates, seven-year graduation rates, and while the rest of the state was dropping through COVID, we maintained. We actually increased. We got a good group going. Thank you.
Natalie? And then Al?
Few things. First of all, that video was amazing. And I just am really thankful that we have a superintendent that's so authentic and practices what she preaches. So thank you. And you ran in the video. I was like, you go, girl. That's amazing. So I was going to say about the orchestra in the summer. We talked about this a little bit in a committee I was on, but possibly bringing band in the summer as well. I see over there. A lot of the high school band students were really looking forward to a band camp that was going to be put on at Apollo, but then unfortunately we lost our Apollo band teachers, so it didn't happen. So just thinking about that as well would be wonderful. That's all I have. Thanks, team, for your good work.
First question was for Carol, and it was concerning the free dental thing. Can you talk about that a little bit? I don't know if I really know what's being offered and how often and that type of thing.
Sure. So pre-COVID, we had a few elementary schools that participated, and it depended upon the need and the interest and the space too at the site, because they have to give up either some conference room space so a hygienist can come in and a dental assistant can come in. And so the offer is for kids who don't see a dentist regularly, that they can come and have their teeth cleaned, and specifically if they have any cavities or anything going on, then this outfit then sets them up with a dentist who can fix those pieces. And so it's really a nice partnership that we have, and the partnership is Children's Dental. To be honest, I'm not even sure where they're located from. I'd have to look that up. But we've had that partnership for many years now. And
is
we've
it
just expanded.
just like on a specific day at a school, or is it
It is.
multiple times during the year?
It is, and depending on the need. So if we have a lot of kids, so we put the offer out to parents, and depending on how many kids sign up, we determine how many days, how many kids that we could see in a day. It's all scheduled out in advance.
Awesome.
Yep.
Second question's for Gary. There's been a lot of stories in the news about the state having a program where they're offering 90,000 kids are going to be able to get free meals. Is that something that we are participating in, or that's going to affect our district, the number of free, kids who qualify for the free and reduced on the federal program get the free lunches. So this 90,000, I would assume, would be above and beyond free and reduced lunch. But do you know how that's going to affect our district, if it is going to affect?
I do, but I would like to defer this to Donna Roper because she can answer it much better than me.
Not going to let me redeem myself.
Do I get a phone in front?
So I believe, and I'm not the expert, I would say Sarah our Modal, our nutrition services person, is the best person, but I have been working closely with her. The state has provided what they call a direct certify file that includes any student whose family has received benefits from Medicare or SNAP or a whole host of services that are that would put those children in a category of potentially being free and reduced price lunch eligible. And what they decided to do this year is send districts this list and automatically qualify them using a certain criteria. I believe, and these aren't 100% accurate, but it's we had roughly 7,200 on the direct cert, and like 5,600 of them qualified. And then on top of that, we continue to push having families get those forms filled in. It is going to have an impact statewide. The numbers are going to be up everywhere in terms of the number of kids qualifying for meals. So that's what I know.
Okay, and just for the record, I've said it many times, but if anyone is listening, I believe that all kids should get free lunch every day in all schools statewide, and we shouldn't have to worry about that. It should just be it should be an afterthought. Dyslexia. You said that we're increasing our resources for dyslexia again this year. We have to be light years ahead of any other district in the state because we were light years ahead before increasing this year. But can you explain a little bit about what we're doing, what's happening this year that we're doing differently than before? You mentioned a couple things, but I didn't really catch the.
Sure.
And are we seeing I know we're seeing the value in the dyslexia programs that we do, that the things that we're doing around dyslexia, we're seeing the value of it. But how many kids is it affecting now? How many kids are we seeing that we are screening and finding issues with dyslexia that would affect their ability to learn?
Great question. So I'll start with the first one. And so you are right. I'm not sure it's light years, but we are definitely ahead in the state with our dyslexia programming. And so what we have done throughout is, we started with in the middle school, and so we targeted those groups, and we were looking for doing assessments for characteristics of dyslexia. And so that's one of the requirements under the statute. And so then we spread down a little bit lower. So we went into 5th grade, we went into 4th grade. And so we just continuously expand, and we went down as much as the curriculum that we're using is called Sunday. And we're even doing some whole group. We did a pilot starting at Talahi when all 1st grade classrooms, it was 1st grade, right, Mike? 1st grade classrooms were using Sunday as well, in addition to the Wonders curriculum, and found it to be extremely successful. And now we're utilizing that Sunday curriculum throughout grade levels.
When you say extremely successful, can you elaborate on that?
I can give you anecdotal. I don't have the data with me, but the anecdotal pieces on it are that principals and teachers report that kids have great growth in their phonics, that they're making sounds more readily, they're able to connect together and make phonemes, and so that their reading becomes more fluent. And so not always is it the kids when they're read to, it's not that they're not understanding what is being said, it's really that fluency piece that they're not able to identify. And as we've talked about dyslexia before, you know, sometimes the traditional pieces are that I may see letters backwards, I might have a B look like a P or a D, et cetera, or see letters upside down. That could be the case, that could be true, but sometimes the visual component of dyslexia is that letters can overlap and they don't see all of the different letters in a word that would make sense for them. And so the dyslexia instruction helps them to decode those pieces and develop those sound components, phonics, as we teach all kids phonics in elementary school, but it's more in depth. I'm happy to have Katie Schneider come back and talk more about our dyslexia data. It's fascinating. It really is quite fascinating. And so we'd be happy to do that at some point if you'd like.
Yes, absolutely. Is it helping kids who don't have dyslexia also? Are they benefiting from these forms of teaching?
You know, I'm going to let Mike maybe talk to the younger grades because, Mike, you probably have experience in that first and second grade about that whole group sonics piece, or sonics, Sunday piece, because there's different opportunities. So it can be a whole group and then it can be a small group. So it's really targeted around the students. Our pilot at Talahi initially was with every classroom, so it was some whole group instruction as well. And maybe, Mike, you can speak to that a little bit better than I can.
So we'll see all of our first grade classrooms across the school district utilizing part of their guided reading time and putting Sunday into effect. So you might see that, as Carol was talking about, being incorporated during a whole group, but oftentimes they'll be using some of those Sunday strategies during a guided reading opportunity where you might only have 3 or 4, 6 or 7-year-olds in front of you as a classroom teacher. So it's another instructional strategy that we're seeing being very effective in helping those kids learning their sounds and putting their sounds together. So we see it becoming more as another comprehensive instructional strategy that we're using, and not just necessarily being specifically utilized for our children who have characteristics of dyslexia.
Yeah, I think it would be great to have someone come and talk about what was seen in the pilot. Something that I really, really, really wish would have existed back when my kids were in these grades.
Can I ask, the sampler program, was it K6, K5? Is that during gym class or is it after school?
I believe it's during the day. I'm going to need some help on that one.
Thank you. It's going to be a yes and. So you're right on that one. We provided, I think it's an hour. Tracy would probably be able to confirm. I think it's an hour of release time for head coaches. It could be 2. To go into our middles and elementaries, both to recruit, right, to build awareness as they're transitioning from 5th to 6th or 8th to 9th, but also to be part of those physical education classes to be developed or to be exposing students. So not all of our FIA teachers may wrestling, right? So then the wrestling coach could come and talk. However, the K6 sampler in partnership with Community Ed will also be offered after school. This year we had that model for 6th graders where it was the by season. So we'll be doing that only for a greatly expanded audience.
Okay. Anyone else? Gosh, thanks. That was impressive. Okay, then we're going to move on here. We're up for proposed revised board policy 202, school board officers. This is a second reading, and Dr. Putnam, are you pulling this one up?
Thank you. And this is our second read of 202, referencing school board officers. The recommendations were to change the Administrative Procedures Manual to Administrator's Handbook to actually match the title, and then to adjust that date, MSBA, from November 30 to September 15.
Yep, I have some suggestions on this one. I agree with the changes that were being made there. There's no change to that. But this one here, when you read the general statement of policy, the school board shall meet, the school board shall meet annually and organize by selecting a chair, a vice chair, a clerk, a treasurer, and such other officers. And the school board shall appoint a superintendent. That's being said as a general statement of policy. And then you go to the organization and it says the exact same thing. Again, the school board shall meet annually on the first Monday. It gets a little bit more detailed, but it doesn't make sense to me that in the general statement of policy, we would go into detail about what we do. And my suggestion would be that we just go with general statement of policy that would say the school board shall organize and appoint a superintendent annually. And I have a question on the appointment of a superintendent also. Then, so that would be A. Then B would go into the detail of the board's organization. And then E, for the superintendent, I would add the board shall appoint a superintendent on E for number 1.
Okay, I'm hoping Jan's getting all that down. We're going to trust that she is.
And so my question on appointing a superintendent, the school board meets the first Monday in January or soon thereafter to organize. But at that point in time, we're halfway through a school year and we already have a superintendent in place. Are we appointing a superintendent at that meeting? Or are we appointing a superintendent in July for the year? Or are we appointing a superintendent at the time we sign a contract for 3 years? Are we appointing that superintendent for 3 years? It doesn't say in the original policy, and it doesn't say in what I put here, exactly what that process of appointing a superintendent is. I mean, if the process is that in January when we organize, we appoint the superintendent, that's fine, but that doesn't align with, for example, this last year where we appointed Willie Jett as superintendent, while now Dr. Lori Putnam is superintendent halfway through the year. So it doesn't align with contracts. Les, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
We have never appointed a superintendent in January. It seems to me that we should take that whole piece out and have a policy on how the school board appoints the superintendent in another place. Because this policy is simply operational. Just take it out and, okay, said enough.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
The way I read it was they were appointing you would be appointing a superintendent to be an ex officio non-voting member of the school board. So not in terms of contract or positionality in the school district in terms of superintendent function, but the superintendent function relative to the operations of the school board is how I understood that to read.
So then it would be a January thing?
I think so. As you're appointing the chair, the vice chair, the clerk, that's also when you would make the superintendent the ex officio, is how I read it.
Okay. And that may be true. I don't think we've done it. I don't think it's been part of our organizational meeting. Has it last year?
No, I've never
I don't recall.
understood it as that.
When I read it, I took it to mean when we say, this is the signer for this, and this, all that like extra stuff. I thought it was talking about who signs the bank account, and that's a lot of the times the superintendent. And we do that every year, that same spiel every year. So I don't know if it meant that, but I agree with Al that 2B, since we're not appointing a superintendent, but we are saying this is the person who will be doing these things. So maybe the wording needs to be changed.
Al, we've been working on getting our money's worth out of MSBA. We could certainly seek clarification from them on what their intention is.
Can we seek clarification on that? I'd like to
Absolutely.
know what they would say.
We sure can.
So anyway, I'll give you my copy of my
Thank you.
recommended, I think I actually sent it.
And Jan is also listening. She texted to assure me.
So I'll give you those, and then if you
we'll
could
clean that up.
contact MSBA and see if we can get a clarification from them on exactly what they mean in that policy.
Gladly. And then we'll bring it back after that for a third read with an action. And then you guys can discuss and decide
Okay.
to move forward or not.
'Cause we're not the only district in the state that has it written like this. It's
No,
like
this is
just about
MSBA
It's
policy.
about every district. But it doesn't make sense. So, okay.
Thank you.
I'm happy with that, if the board's happy with that.
Monica?
So I wasn't here for the first reading, but one question that I have and one thing that I wanted to bring up is that this policy determines the duties of the treasurer and talks about the treasurer, and which is elected by the board. And one thing that I have always seemed conflicted for me is that the chair names the chair of the finance committee. And it just seems logic. I mean, we had been electing to have the treasurer being member of the finance committee, but it's because we have elected it, not because, for me, the treasurer should be the chair of the finance committee. That's kind of what I'm saying. And yeah, and I like it to be in the policy, but I don't have any specific. I think that we will have to work it out to put it there. So I don't have any suggestions of wording.
I would disagree with that. I think that there shouldn't, being the treasurer doesn't automatically put you in a position to be chair of the finance committee. As chair of the finance committee and the vice chair of the school board, I don't think that I should have to be the chair of the school board to be the chair of the finance committee. Or treasurer of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to be treasurer of the school board in order to be the chair of the finance committee. That, I don't see where they're connected.
It leaves out the possibility that somebody who is chairing the finance could be on a different position. Yeah. Natalie?
I agree with Monica. I think the fact that we have, let's just be honest with ourselves about what the treasurer is supposed to do and why the treasurer is the treasurer. And the fact that the treasurer isn't the chair of the finance committee. If you look at any board of nonprofits and there's a finance committee, then you're going to see your treasurer as part of that board or probably the head of that board, unless if it's a small committee, a small nonprofit, not if it's a huge one who has a CFO or whatever. I'm concerned and have been concerned about the same thing Monica was saying, because then right now we have someone who's a vice chair and the chair of the finance committee, and then what is the treasurer really doing? If the treasurer is not the head of the finance committee, why are they the treasurer? That's always been confusing to me in my last 4 years as well, so I will second that.
I think that that's two different roles, and Dr. Green?
This may not apply, but we might ask the auditor about that because of the concept of separating, the need for separation of some kinds of activities so that there's checks and balances, and that the chair of the finance committee and being the treasurer combines two financial things. I'm not sure of that, but I just suggest we just ask them if it.
Zach?
Regarding Al's point earlier, the ex officio thing is in statute. Treasurer is also in statute, so they do have some legal definitions there. Not much, but they do exist. 123B.
So do you, in that comment then, are you supporting that they stay in existence as is in that policy? Is that just?
Well, it's more a point of information. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know what we're intending to change here, I guess.
Okay. But it does have statute connected to it. Monica, or Natalie, then Monica, sorry.
I think that I would like clarification on what the treasurer does versus what the chair of the finance committee does, because the other part of the confusion is like, if someone's the treasurer of the board, I would imagine they would be giving the finance committee report to the community. Otherwise, again, why are they the treasurer? So that's, I think, what I would need to understand more is what are the roles, what is the role of the treasurer? Why do we have one?
I think it's here in this policy, and then I believe the finance committee in another policy, all the committees have some bullet points in them.
It's, as it says, treasurer is responsible for depositing the funds of the school district in the official depository, which is really done by the business services staff. There isn't much that the treasurer actually is involved in, but the treasurer is responsible to make the reports of the deposits. It has very little to do with what the finance committee does. The finance committee reviews the budgets. The finance committee reviews spending initiatives. The finance committee, they're working more on a global scale with budgetary policy for the district, whereas the treasurer is the person who's responsible for the deposit, making sure that the money flows in and out of the district. But it's not about putting budgets together and determining spending for the district. It's about when money comes in, making sure it goes to the right place, and when money goes out, making sure it goes to the right people and places.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I think treasurer should be chair of the finance. That's just the reality in my mind.
But then the board is voting, one position, one committee, the board is voting who that person's going to be. And every other committee is selected by the chair. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we look at surrounding districts and see what they do in this area? Is the treasurer the chair of the finance committee or not? And just see what practices are around us or around the state, or just do like I would like to know how other school boards do it, I guess, is my question.
Scott? And then Monica.
I am the treasurer, and basically, all the duties have been delegated to the business office. Frankly, it's a nothing job.
Okay, Monica, Zach, then Dr. Green.
So, So what we're saying is that the role of the treasurer is an oversight role, and is not a role that performs activities like the finance committee. Being an oversight role and not having any procedure around how that oversight works, for me, makes it ineffective. And the one thing about the finance committee chair or members of the finance committee is that oversight does happen in that committee, although it is not a duty of the treasurer by statute to be doing budgets. You're right about that, Al. The way that I'm seeing is that oversight lies in that committee, with having that oversight there. And I just wanted to make it more, I mean, I wanted us to either discuss about this or clarify those roles, or include in the policy that should be the same person, but I'm
Can you scroll
Not
that
done.
policy down a little bit more?
done on.
You can, well, the clerk,
I'm not done.
I know, I'm reading.
Go ahead, Molly.
So what I'm saying is that I actually lost my train of thoughts. Never mind, go ahead.
We'll come back to you. Let me know when you remember it. Zach, then Dr. Green.
I don't want to have to read out of the statute, but it's statutory, defined in statute, and Al summed it up, but it doesn't need to be, they can be different people. Chair of a committee, treasurer. So nothing in statute changed that.
The treasurer does not have to be a member of the school board.
Correct. They can be appointed.
Dr. Green?
I'm confused a bit about the issue. In my small brain, it seems that the role of the finance committee for the board is to oversee, related to our policies, how we use money, how we use resources of the district, and how, whether if how we decide whether or not a bid should go out, roofing bids. I remember the whole issue of roofing. That was a very important finance committee oversight issue. The treasurer I don't think is a non activity. I said somehow there's a person who decides what bank we use. Not a person, but I mean, there's oversight in terms of how we disperse the money that comes into the district to different banks and things of that nature. And that's a treasurer's responsibility, I think, to make certain we, it's not a political thing, but it sort of is. It's got to make, if we have all this money, we can't just decide to put it in one bank and do that. So I don't know. I'm confused, actually confused about whether it's a this makes sense issue related to the treasurer being the chair of the finance committee, or I don't understand why it's a problem, I guess. And if I could, I disagree with you concepts going about, but I don't really understand what the disagreement is at this moment. So that's just, I'm confused.
Natalie, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Haas. I just think, this policy brings into question, how do we make decisions of who's leading the board? And that's what this is about. So that's the conversation on the table. And, it's up to every chair how to do it. I think if I were chair, I would ask who desires these positions? And then make my decision from there. I haven't seen that sort of inclusive decision-making. It's kind of, seems like it's already decided and nobody's really asked what they want to do. So I think what I'm putting on the table is what the tension is in this room, is that depending on who's the chair, they get to decide as to whether we're talking about how we're leading. Everybody gets a chance to say, hey, this is what I want to do, or does the chair just get to say, these are who my people are? So, and there's been some, it's just a reality of a power structure that can leave some people feeling like I'll never have anything to do with any of these 4 positions because it was never open to me and it was decided without me. So I think that is the actual thing we're talking about here, is some past pains. So let's just be real as a board and as human beings and as adults that anyway, I have felt like some of the decision makings for these positions, it wasn't inclusive for all 7 members of the board. And that is what it is. And that's kind of the tension we sit in here, I think, with this policy.
So I'm going to jump in and take a turn, and I would disagree that it hasn't been inclusive. The problem comes in when 2 people want the same thing. So there's a decision made, but in the past, myself and other people who have sat as chair have reached out to people and asked them. So specifically, I understand, Dr. Green, there is some history with what we're talking about here. And so when Monica brought it up, I very much know that she wanted this and wanted this, so that those discussions have happened. But ultimately, the decision was made that somebody else was the chair to the finance committee. So that it's just conflict when 2 people want the same thing. But it was understood what the interest level is. Monica?
So I just want to clarify that I brought the topic up without thinking in any power struggle, and I will appreciate people that have spoken now that do not put words in my mouth. I have not said anything about I wanted to be whatever I wanted to be. To be honest, I don't care about being the treasurer because I have felt that position doesn't do anything, as Scott just said it. So, and if you don't do anything, because Amy actually does everything, which is fine. Well, I was just thinking, so was the goal of the position? And my concern and my thought was, okay, where does this fit? I know it's in a statute, I know it's for a statute, and I'm not saying that we have to change the statute, not even suggesting that we're going to attempt to do that, neither that we're going to go against the statute. I understand that it could be any person. My suggestion was, okay, that any person should be the chair of the finance committee because it makes sense in my head. Now, I was talking only about that, and I appreciate the discussion, and I brought up the discussion, and I do appreciate the discussion. I do not appreciate that people put words in my mouth and tell me that I mean some things that I don't mean. And that's all what I have to say about this. And I'm happy to leave it the way that it is. I will support the policy the way that it is.
Scott?
There's something to be said for expertise. I was community member of the finance committee for several years, then more years as a board member, and after a while you get a feel for what you're doing. I know Natalie's been doing really a good job on her committee because she's been on it for a while. There's something to be said about expertise.
Dr. Green?
Just to make sure that that my confusion is ended.
Okay.
This is not about the treasurer and whether the treasurer should be chair of the finance committee. That wasn't what Monica was bringing forward. That's what she was talking about,
She wants to connect the two, is my
connecting the two. That's a
Yes.
different issue than,
Yeah.
I think, what I heard otherwise, that, I mean, the concept of how people are selected to chair committees is not what the treasurer concept was about.
Well, they're intertwined, in my opinion, and without getting too far into the weeds, but there was several people that wanted to be chair of the finance committee.
Well, I understand that, but my
Okay.
point was it had nothing, whether or not your treasurer had nothing to do with the issue. I mean, if I get backdoor being chair of the finance committee by being the treasurer, then yeah, that's the way to backdoor being chair of the finance committee. But if it has nothing to do with the finance committee, why would I want to be treasurer? If I really wanted to be chair of the finance committee,
That was the
if
want.
that's what I really
Yeah.
want,
Yes.
then it's irrelevant what the treasurer does.
Right.
Unless unless somebody was treasurer for life and then wanted to be chair of the finance committee and then wanted to connect the finance committee together so they could be chair, and the treasurers, they could be chair of the committee. If we're having an adult discussion, the discussion is about who decides who chairs committees and how those decisions are made. It's not about treasurer. And so if we have that discussion openly, and I think that Natalie has raised that issue appropriately, saying she wants to know and participate in how the decisions are made about who gets to be chair of what kind of committees. And I think that's a valid discussion to have, but not try to connect it with whether the treasurer has anything to do or not.
It's a strange connection, yes. Yeah, I agree. So in the past.
My opinion, by the way. That's all.
What, this all magically happens at the reorg meeting. And so, who's assigned, right, yes, but the chair, so we vote the chair in, according to policy, the chair assigns the committees. And how has that come about? Well, whoever thinks they might want to run for chair would solicit opinions from everybody.
So one of the options might be to vote all of the positions in. Is that, or is it in statute that you have to do it, that the chair has to do it?
We vote positions in, but not committees in.
Okay, so, but I mean, is that in statute, or could we could this policy revision be revising the policy about how committee chairs are assigned and change it to voting? I'm just asking that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of complicated to spread. It sort of, it seems easier than it is, but to solicit 7 people and say, what's your first wish? What's your second wish? What's your third wish? What don't you want? And then at best bet, you're going to half appease everybody. And then you want to make it as even as possible. So you don't have somebody in 4 committees and 2 people in no committee. So it gets really complicated.
So we're actually crossing, if I may, we're crossing policies, I believe, at this point. So 202 clarifies the roles of the officers, and then here, 213 talks about committee, how the committee chairs are appointed, and that is slated to go to board development next time they meet, which is next week. So if you wanted to, you could wait until the conversation was held in board development first, and their job, since these are your policies, right? They will have the initial conversations and then bring the policy forward to you for conversation at that point.
Al?
I just want to make a comment on treasurer, and for anyone to say that it's a nothing job, it's a nothing job because they do a really good job of doing it for you, but legally, you're responsible for it. And so if they don't do a really good job of it, it's your responsibility. And the treasurer does not have to be a member of the school board. If I read correctly, the treasurer can be appointed, it can be someone else. The clerk and treasurer can be combined into one position, and they don't have to be a member of the school board. That's the way that I understood that. So we could, that's an opportunity for us too. We could say the treasurer doesn't have to be a member of the school board. We could appoint someone else as the treasurer. But legally, there's a responsibility as treasurer, and you're signing documents, so.
And legally, there is. It's been delegated to Amy, and she's so good at it, there's nothing for me to do.
Correct, exactly.
Dr. Green and then Monica.
I'll defer to Monica.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of one of my issues. A position with all liability and no power or control. So I'm wondering if the treasurer can be a member of the staff, and then in that case, could be Amy, should be Amy. I don't know if Amy has any opinion about that, but I don't know that.
So, so the treasurer would generally want to be someone not involved in the accounting for the district. So there does become a major conflict of interest and separation of duties, and it becomes someone who has access to accounting transactions with the district. It's something to keep in mind. That is, while it's not an active, participatory thing, that is one of the two authorized signers.
So thank you, Amy. So that I was actually suspecting that, which also makes it not possible to be any member of the public, because as a member of the public, you will have to have access to information or records that not every member of the public had privilege to. So again, that's kind of what that's what I wanted to check more or figure out how, because in my mind, the finance committee is where you actually oversee all this. You do a lot more in the finance committee, but the oversight is there. So at the very least, that person should be a member of the finance committee, which has not happened all the time. And board members cannot really attend other committees because then we have quorum issues. So that's kind of what I was going earlier. I thought that the chair was a good position. I'm okay if you don't like it. I'm not suggesting that is, but that is what I had been thinking about and just wondering about until this time.
Would it make more sense if it just said that the treasurer has to be a member of the finance committee, not the treasurer has to be the chair of the finance committee? Because then you wouldn't be locking that into, you have to be treasurer to be, if you're chair of the finance committee, you have to be the treasurer. It works both ways.
If you're asking me if that makes more sense than what we have right now, yes, I think so.
Scott's treasurer and on the finance committee, and has been for, right, and you have too. It's been there.
But it'd be certainly to consider adding that line, because that's not locking somebody in
That's
too.
not locking
Yeah,
someone into being chair of
yeah.
something.
Natalie, did you?
No, Chair, thank you, sorry.
I think that's a good solution. The treasurer has to be a member of finance. That's all.
Are we giving nods that we would like to add that line? Okay, and then, so I think what we're doing here is this is going to Jan, and then we're coming back for a thorough third reading. Dr. Green?
Just, and it's just a concern. I don't think or see, but maybe I'm wrong, that there are positions on the board other than chair, vice chair maybe, that should be used as positions of power and authority and be able to direct. I was chair, I found the role as a coordinating concept, and that if the structure, the concept of a power structure in the board tends to worry me if that is a concept. I mean, I think, you know, and this is maybe just me, I've loved to be clerk. Some of you know why. Maybe all of you don't know why. But I found it to be an honor to have my name on the diplomas of the graduating students for the rest of their lives. It was the greatest honor I could have. You know, and so that's why I've always wanted to be clerk. The chair gets on there, but only for the time in their chair. The rest of this business or this activity that we're involved in is to work together in a very collaborative way to try and educate young people. If we educate them in a way that suggests we think that there are structures of power on the school board that are not necessarily visible but are there, I think we are operating in a way that is troublesome and will always get us in trouble. Good people who come together to use their skills, their talents, and their histories and their expertise to help facilitate this grand staff we have to develop and educate children seems to be what the role is. Or if we sit in a room and quibble about power structures and authority and things like that, we demean, I believe, what we're supposed to be doing. Opinion.
So 213 is going to the Board Development Committee and will be coming forward to us if there's an opportunity then to come up with a different approach to committees. Al?
To say that I agree with Les. Every one of us has a vote on this board, and it's about 14% of the total. And that's your only power, but it's equal amongst everybody. When I was chair of the board for 2 years. I always found that to be the least powerful position on the board because you never get to talk. You direct traffic for the entire meeting and then you get to summarize at the end or say something at the end, but you're very seldom are you intervening into a conversation and saying anything and spreading influence. As I'm the chair of the finance committee right now. That's the only committee I'm on. And there's a lot of other committees that make a lot of decisions. And I'm not sitting on those committees where most people are sitting on three committees. So I don't think that there is really a power structure on the board. I think some people are more outspoken, some people get more involved in things, and there may be some, I'm not going to call it inequity, but if you choose to get very involved in something, you're going to be heard more than if you choose to not get involved in something. But in the end, each one of us gets one vote. And I don't see anyone as having any more power than anyone else on the board. It just doesn't work that way.
I think the single conflict here is how do we land on what committees? Am I right in that? that that's the struggle? Don't know. Okay. But we're moving on. Next policy? Sound good? Okay. We are moving on to 203.2. This is the second reading for order of the regular school board meeting. This will be another healthy discussion. Dr. Mike Rivard.
Again, we are reviewing Board Policy 203.2, the order of regular school board meeting. I think that's the first time I haven't liked having a mic, but we'll see. We do have a change that we recommended last month, and it's just directly related to how our meetings, how the school board meetings actually look. So any points of discussions or questions? Thank you.
So we had a healthy discussion about this last time, about community input, and should it be before the meeting, during the meeting, all that sort of thing. And we've heard from a community member tonight. I've also heard from other community members as well in the same vein, on all sides of the issue, but really expressing that they would like to hear, the community members would like to hear the community input if they're not able to be there. And so just bringing that forward again, because I feel like what we have, this is the one I'm talking about, right? No, this is the next one. Oh, because of that, because it's that one with the long, is that the next one? Just pretend I'm not here. Okay.
Don't be Roseanne Dan and say never mind.
Okay, well, no, not never mind, and, so a yes and, because this is saying the order, and then we're saying the why in the next one, right? Kind of? That's where we rewrote that paragraph? Okay. So the question would be, is the community input before or during the board meeting? So if we had it during the board meeting, that would be number one. Right now, what we're saying is that it's before the board meeting and it's not televised. Not televised, we're not televising anything, but, it's not within the recorded session. So we basically have to have that conversation for this and the next one, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the point is, that we were talking about. The point is the meeting is called to order right before the mission statement.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Meant to raise my hand.
So the order was still the same. We just flip-flopped two words there, but convene board meeting. We've never had that statement in there before, so now it's a clarification. It's always been community input, mission statement, pledge allegiance, roll call, but we're clarifying that what we've always done is the convene the board meeting has been between community input and mission statement.
Okay.
And so just clarifying that we're not changing something, what we were doing, we're clarifying, in my opinion. But Al, are you looking to jump in there? You're grabbing here.
At some point, I'm looking to jump in, but I don't know if it's this policy or the next one.
Okay.
I know,
So-
I don't know
would-
what to do either.
So-
do you want to close do you want to close this one before the other one? Because the other one's going to affect this. one.
Right, and so loosely,
we have a
we're
third reading.
moving on from this one, so, but we
Fine with
know
me.
that this may not be a solid third reading next time, right?
So would you like us to bring it back for a third reading as an
Quite
action
possibly.
item next time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on our conversation
Yeah.
next, right?
Yeah, because we're not quite sure where we're headed with this.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so now we are going on to second reading for policy 205, right? The open, close, special, and emergency meetings. Am I right, or did I flip one? Did I go too far?
Oh, gosh, you're right. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, so proposed board policy 205, open, close, special, and emergency meetings, second reading, and this is by Dr. Mike Rivard as well.
Good evening again, board members and Dr. Putnam. Board Policy 205, we did review at our last board meeting. We only have one change. This is a change that would ensure that we're matching up with MSBA best. And I'm going to go down to coaches. And last, it is a statement that the existence of a parent complaint must not be the sole reason for the school board not to renew a coaching contract. And it comes to us also via a change in statute at the bottom. So, any questions or concerns about the change to Board Policy 205?
Nice, that one was painless. Okay, so then we're moving on to second reading for board policy. Participation in school board meetings / complaints about persons at school board meeting and data privacy considerations. And Dr. Lori Putnam will go over this one.
Perfect, thank you. As you may recall from our discussion last time we met, we were trying to find the right language to describe the people who may choose to come. And so we decided, based on your feedback, to bring language that Chair Hawes already reads and refer to people as the public. So you'll see that it is changed. So I will read that for folks who are at home. The policy of the school board is to encourage discussions by the public. And then you will see either the public or people throughout the policy. And I apologize for those of you who it makes queasy for me to scroll. I don't have a better way to do this. And again, here you'll see people. Down here, it's members of the public, and really the only difference was just language preference. There is nothing that distinguished people from members of the public. Again, we did ask that during people who are coming to give input, that they, rather than state their street address, they would state their city of residence. Again, members of the public who wish to address a school board on a particular subject must state name, city of residence. So those were the changes relative to that section. And then we had a nice discussion on public input. And so we took your feedback and are bringing forward a revision based on the conversation that we heard here. I will read it for those of you who are at home or who can't quite see that. The goal of public input is to open an avenue of communication for members of the public to speak directly to the members of the school board. Participants may wish to share views on agenda items currently coming before the board, or to make the board aware of issues or situations not currently being considered that are, however, of special interest to the community member. The school board has an obligation to ensure data privacy statute are adhered to during all of its public meetings. Therefore, to ensure compliance, the opportunity for direct communication with board members through public input will be provided prior to the start of the school meeting and will not be publicly streamed, broadcast, or recorded.
Yeah.
I'll start with the easy part. When we say that we're looking, so it used to say state your address and kind of dox yourself. And we're changing that to city of residence. But the goal of the goal that was stated before when it said name and address was to determine that a person was a member of the school district, or if you're speaking as a member of the school district or a resident of the school district versus a resident outside of the school district. And I'm wondering if it, instead of saying city of residence, if we shouldn't just have them state whether or not they are a resident of District 742? Yes or no?
So, two things there. One is, are we asking on, are they a taxpayer? Or they could not be a resident of 742 and they could have a student open and enrolled. So which one are we after?
Yeah.
I don't even know why we care.
Why do we care? Yeah.
I mean, we're a school board, and there are just hundreds and thousands of opinions out there about things that might help us. And if somebody wants to come and sit there and say, hey, folks, I got an idea for you, and they had about 3 minutes to give it to us, why not just listen? And they can, if they want to say, because part of the reason that people want to say they're from the district is because I have a vested interest in this district. If I'm from California or whatever, I don't care about your district. I care about the issue. Maybe they don't even care about that. It's just, but the point is, I mean, we'll get into trouble. I think we will get into trouble if we try to short circuit certain people from sitting there and just saying, hey, this is what I think. And we may find grand ideas and oh, I never thought about that before, sitting at the end of the table. And so I would suggest we just figure out a way to say anybody that wants to can come and have their 3 minutes and ask them if they would be helpful. Keep it to issues that are important to educating our children.
Say their name, but.
So name.
My name is so-and-so, and people
like
are going
that.
to tell you where they're from because it sort
like
of
to.
suggests to you why they're there,
Mhm.
why they care. So that would,
I support that. Are we all nodding for
I'm fine
just,
with it.
just name? Okay. Look at that. We all agreed. Okay.
Can I clarify? So we just want name, we'll remove city of residence. Do you wish the rest of that sentence to be continued? The name of the group represented, if any, and the subject covered or issue to be addressed? Or would you like us to stop at name?
Name.
stop it.
Name
You
period.
can say subject covered. What do you want to talk about?
Do they need to say that?
Well, they probably should say that. Here's what I'm here because I want to tell you this.
Okay. Sure. We like that? I don't care.
So we're taking out city of residence and the name of the group represented, leaving name and the subject to be covered or the issue to be addressed. Thank you.
I find interesting and important what is it? The group represented, if any.
Say that again, what? I'm sorry.
Hello? The last line after city of residence, that is highlighted yellow, that is the name of group represented, if any, and the subject of covered or the issue to be addressed. So I like that full sentence that is still there to remain there. So I'm saying, yeah, get rid of the city which is highlighted and that's it.
Yep, I think we're all agreeing with you.
Thank you.
I'm not, if I may,
Please.
if I don't want to tell you that I represent a group, why do I have to? If I happen to, if I have followers, I'm telling you that I have followers or something like that, but there's no important, if I think it's important that you know that I represent this group, I would tell you that. If I don't think it's important that you know
That's
that,
fair.
I don't know why you would suggest to me that I have to tell you that. But that's my opinion.
Monica?
If I can respond to that, because it's a reminder, though, you don't have to tell us anything if you don't want to. I mean, nobody's going to check or put you in jail because you don't say whatever you were supposed to say there. But it's a reminder when we said that. And I'm interested in knowing what group people represent. So that's all what I'm saying. I'm interested in that. I like it to remain there. We have had it there. Not everybody says it.
It should say it somehow that it's not required, though. They don't have to. If Yeah. Yeah, if relevant. Rather than if any. If relevant. Okay. Like it. Okay. Natalie?
I just want to say, I don't know what the right answer is with this, going back to this discussion. Like, I never want us, and I don't think anybody in this room wants any part of the public to feel like we're not an open and communicative board, that we're a school district, we're for the public. So that is what gives me pause in not recording it, because it does make some people in our community feel like we're not being as open as possible. I understand the reasons why we don't do it as well. So I just want to put that out there, that I don't have the answer. I'm just conflicted.
Dr. Green?
I have an answer.
Okay.
In the years that I've been on the board, I've heard nothing from any public input. Well, I shouldn't say that. That maybe let's try it. Just add it to the board meeting with as official part of the board meeting. Public input is an official part of the board meeting with the same parameters on it. Record it, and as the same way the rest of the meeting. I mean, there's a lot of sort of reasons that you could say why you don't want it, but why? I mean, my concern at some point back then was that people would be grandstanding, and because it was televised, not recorded, it was televised, and they would want to bring issues related to talking about people or whatever. I don't really think we've had anybody bad-mouthing an individual person. Well, we may have, but let's give it a try for some period of time. As my designate, as we've tried some other things for a period of time, and see whether or not they caused massive implosion of our district. So I'll quit.
Zach and then Al.
So one, I have no objection to somebody stating their name, city of residence, or anything. If I were board chair, I'd kind of want to know why they're here, to take up time for us and everybody else who may be in the room. This is a board meeting. This is a board meeting. This is our board meeting. As selfish as that sounds, that's what this is. Public comment can come in the form of phone, email, snail mail, whatever it is. We can have public listening sessions. But I do not believe public comment should ever be part of a board meeting any more so than it is now. Right? People misinterpret the role of school board. Right? There's a board meeting. I just want to emphasize that. And I'm weary of grandstanding. I definitely am. At the same time, if we don't allow people to speak, then we're seen as turning people away. I know we don't do that. So just to reiterate, this is a board meeting. We get to choose, but I don't think, I think we do it just fine right now. I really, really do. And I'm not opposed to public broadcasting of public comments, because even if we were to take that away, people will come here with their cell phones and do it Facebook Live anyways, because it's still public, so. That's all, thank you.
Al?
You can express.
No, what I was going to say is that I've always been, since I've been on the board, I've always been in favor of broadcasting it. And I don't think that it should be part of the meeting. I think that it should be, the order should be the same as it is. It's just what time do we turn the cameras on? And I would say turn the cameras on for public input. And my reasoning is Sartell has a policy that you cannot, that they are not going to broadcast public input. And every single meeting for the last year on Facebook, you can look up public input from all of the people that provide public input, because people are taking their phones out and recording it and then posting it. So it's gonna get recorded. But what it's done in Sartell is it's created a division, and it's created a culture of secrecy, like they're doing things without, they don't want us to see. They don't want anyone to know that we've told them in this, and people look at that as a negative, and it's like, I mean, I'm always a believer that you just confront stuff. There's bad stuff's gonna happen, confront it. We have the ability, we could always delay it, or, tape 3-second delay it and push the button or something along those lines. I shouldn't say we can always, because I don't know if we have that technology, but if we have a 3 or a 5-second delay and there's somebody is stating a student's name or something, then that button could get pushed and it could be interrupted. So I think that we have methods of avoiding the data, or just the data protection part of that. But I've always been in favor of just let it happen. We don't get that much public input, and I don't think we're going to see that much more if we broadcast it. In fact, it might make some people weary of coming here because they don't want their name and picture broadcast all over the internet either. So kind of my thoughts. I've always been in favor of it, but I
Monica?
go either way.
So I am agreeing with what Zach and Al said, with the difference that I do believe that public input, in my mind, is another way that public can give input to the board. And there are people that don't use internet. There are people that don't know that they can find the board member's phone number in the website or ask somebody. There are people that might have or might thought that the only venue to speak to the board is to come to the meetings. And that includes students. I have heard students saying that, and many students that didn't even know that they actually could come and talk to the board at the board meeting. So I'm not sure that I am not supportive. I mean, as Zach said, I kind of think that we have been managing things right. And I don't know that I have any input for this specific policy. I like to talk about other ways that we can get input. I have talked to individual board members in the past about this, and I know that this board has tried other things, because other individual members have told me, we had these listening sessions, we had coffee with board members, we had this kind of thing. And every time that I have heard that, and for people that are not longer in the board also that have told me those experiences, I can heard like maybe not a lot of people came or not a lot of people participated. But at the same time, that doesn't matter, because the person that came that day might be very important for that person and that experience, and it might be just another way to outreach to people as board members. I do think that has other implications, that people that has come to me about concerns that they have about the schools, in most of the cases, they have been very specific operational things, that the only thing that I can do is to bring them down to the chain where that thing needs to be taken care of. It does, as a board member, gives me an idea of things that are coming, that are happening there. And I think that as some board members may feel disempowered by the questions about, I don't know, the school class with the specific teacher that did a specific thing, and it gets very specific to a specific issue. So I have always been more in favor of having those conversations of boards with community members, actually with the staff there. But that is a completely different conversation than this policy. So what I'm saying is that I do think there are concerns. I have concerns about public input, or of developing enough opportunities for the public to give us input. And I think that we could and should be doing more about it and developing those and having conversations about that. But I don't think that has anything to do with this policy. And my concern about specifically to the policy is that by televising public input, are we disencouraging actually people to participate as you thought that maybe less people will come? So I don't have an answer for it, and I'm not in favor or in support. It's just that's what I thought.
I want to jump in. I agree with Zach's words that community input is not part of the board meeting. I want to ask the question, is community input, is it for a community member to inform the school board about how they feel about something or their opinion about something? Or is community input to inform an opportunity for them to be recorded and to have that opportunity to tell the community how they feel? The input opportunity here is for them to tell the school board how they feel, not to have it broadcast and tell the community how they feel. There's so many other opportunities for community members to talk to other community members. But at a school board meeting, the opportunity exists for them to tell us before the meeting, tell the school board something. We're not providing a platform for the community to be broadcast on our YouTube channel, which is very accessible, to inform the community about how they feel about something. That's not what this is about. Community input is to talk to the school board, and therefore I do not support that it is attached to our school board meetings.
I don't know whose responsibility it should be to make certain that every person in the community knows about school boards. People vote. A website that has all of our names, addresses, and telephone numbers all over the place. A newspaper reports that. And for people not to know that, I don't believe is a faulting of the board not being available or the information not being available. Our civics classes in the school district really ought to explain to kids that they can actually talk to the school board. That would seem to be sort of, oh, by the way, if you want to have input into city, county government, school boards, things of that nature, here's how you do it. I think that we should conduct our business, which is about helping kids become educated, and less about making certain that everybody in the world or in the public is educated about what school boards do. I don't know if that's our responsibility. I'm thinking out loud and probably getting myself in trouble, but I just don't seem to think it's that the inability of people to know they can come and talk to us has anything to do with whether or not they should or shouldn't. And when people, and the concept of contacting individual board members, if somebody, I mean, I get emails, and all of us get emails from people. That's public input. That's public input. I mean, they're saying, I don't like what you're doing, or I don't like what these teachers did. I don't like this whole process of what happened. And so I want you to do something about it. So, and I think that's right. I mean, well, I don't know, the further we get into, the farther we get into this conversation, the less it seems to make sense to me, you know, and it just, you know, let's educate kids.
I'm thinking back a little bit to, there have been issues when we have had the public involved. When we were debating whether to have a new tech high school, we had a lot of people involved and a lot of people talking. And when Shannon wanted to get a gymnastics gym built for $5 million, she was able to bring people in repeatedly, bring her team or whatever. And it's kind of a pressure tactic. It's a little bit intimidating to have people showing up again and again to put pressure on the board, repeat it over and over. So we haven't seen the stressful situations in a long time, but they do come. That's about all I can say.
Okay.
I don't think we can unload that on Shannon. Okay, that's all.
I don't want, yeah, I just,
I mean, come on, I mean, Shannon,
yeah.
yeah, that's all. That's not, Shannon didn't come with, she wasn't the one saying, I want this $5 million thing. We were all having a discussion about
Yeah.
whether or not that would be a good thing for the district, and it wasn't Shannon's whatever, but I know you didn't mean that, Scott,
Yeah,
honestly.
I know you didn't mean it either.
You were illustrating something, so, but it seemed it was floating on the table right there, and I needed to think it or something.
That's okay. We're all just talking. Natalie?
Since I'm the one who brought this up, I really, really liked what you said, Chair Oz, about that's the our constituents' time to talk to us, and then the whole board meeting is all of our times to talk to each other, and as we do these presentations to the public. So I'm, again, not confused because of Shannon's wisdom. So I think, I think keeping it as is fine and good.
As is, like,
I
you
don't know
like
what
the
you just
second reading.
Yes, I like the second reading. What my concern was maybe we needed to televise public input. And I no longer have that concern because of Shannon's explanation.
Monica, then Al.
So my apologies for not being here last time, but so you were the one who brought that change to put the paragraph that is now yellow and cross out the 9 point? So, no?
It was everybody talking.
Okay, because I like the 9 point better than the other part, but never mind, I'm gonna be quiet.
Al?
We were asking the question before the meeting, and I don't think that we have an answer yet. And that was there's public input, which is different than like a truth in taxation public hearing. Do public hearings have to be televised? Or where do they fit into this? And I guess I would look at Gary or Tracy on that.
Well, if I may. Is she coming?
Or Amy?
Amy, or does anybody recall past practice? Have we publicly broadcast when we do parking fees or truth in taxation?
Taxation we do because it occurs in the middle of the meeting, but I don't know legally what the requirement is or what we've done in terms of broadcasting when we have them at 6:15 and before a meeting. I'm not sure what we've done.
Well, I don't think that we were recording last time.
Required, so I do think they would be streamed. If we're streaming the meeting, then we would stream those parts of the meeting that are required by statute.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Amy.
And it's restricted to that subject matter is the difference there. Then just for clarification, that it was the majority of us that did add the additional opportunity for community members to address the board. Because prior to my stepping on, it was only once a month, and it was really confusing. Was it Wednesday? Was it Thursday? And we would have community members show up, and you missed it. That was, 2 weeks ago, and it was a frustrating process. And to not have that out there in the community and frustrating them, we said, if we're having a board meeting, we're going to allow you a moment to speak before either one.
We had the same kind of issue with that years ago, but one of the things we did was, instead of having just public input, we had come sit down with the board for a half an hour before the meetings. And so board members sat in rooms, and the public came in and had an open discussion with us about issues that they wanted to talk about for about 2 months. And it just sort of, nobody showed up, except, there were 2 people who, but I think it's providing the opportunity for people to talk directly to the board, because that's the way they best feel they can communicate, as opposed to writing an email or something like that. If they look at us and say these things to us, it may be that, okay, now I know I've been heard, because I saw their faces, I saw their eyes, and that's what I needed. So.
Yeah.
If I can add on those, where we had to come in for a public discussion, one of the challenges of that was we couldn't have a quorum. So we could only have 3 board members, otherwise you're doing business as a board and you're not, yeah. So it wasn't the same as when we have the public input here. So that made it very difficult. And the bottom line is, we'd show up a half hour early for the meeting and no one would show up. 0. So.
Monica?
Can that be, can that be made, I wouldn't say half an hour, but can be 15 minutes and be published that is available and is a full table there? Because that would be, one of my personal concerns before I was a board member, one of the things that never felt right to me is that you come and talk and then you leave and you don't know what the board does with whatever you said. I would prefer to have a discussion with people where people answer me what they are saying and they tell me, they say something. So that actually looks more like that, because you can talk and respond. But I understand what you're saying. So could we try something like that? And could it be like the full board is there? And I wouldn't say half an hour, because I don't think that we're going to get a lot of people, but just one day a month, 15 minutes.
Full board or not full board?
Full board. But if it's, I don't know if we can do it. Yeah, I think that we could do the full board if it's published. No? Am I wrong?
Yeah, and then Dr. Green wants to jump in.
I think it would have to be part of the meeting then. Otherwise, we're meeting as a board doing business and having discussions outside of a board meeting, and we can't do that. It would have to, yeah, it would have to be a special meeting.
Dr. Green?
There were members of the board previously who had regular coffee meetings
Yes.
with people at restaurants. I have heard, and rightly so, from Al, Natalie, Onika, people talk to you and you bring that information back. I don't see that. I mean, I'm trying to figure out where it is that the public does not get an opportunity to say to the board or board members how they feel about something. The added piece is this thing we do here with the public input, where they get to talk to all 7 board members at one time and watch our reaction to what they say. That's the only difference. They watch Natalie's reaction when they talk to her, and Monica's and Al's. People don't talk to me very often, but, but I'm serious. I just get waves. But I think we provide an opportunity for people to talk to all 7 members of the board at one time in this public input kind of concept, and doing it before every meeting makes a great deal of sense. If we get 2 or 3 people, it will surprise most of us, unless we're doing something that people perceive to be controversial. Wilson School, the sale of Wilson School, whether or not masks are required. Those things brought people to the board to give their opinion, and they were able to give it in a very vociferous manner, but they said what they wanted to get said. So I'm not sure that we I'm not sure that we have created any kind of situation where people feel like we're hiding. I don't understand that concept of, if you want to talk to other people, you can do a blog, I guess, and here's what I think the school board is doing wrong, and have people listen to that.
They can live stream, right?
And to add to that, I can't tell you how many times you hear people say, call into the radio shows or whatever, saying that the board, an issue will come before the board, and then it gets published in the paper. And all of a sudden, the board's been working on this behind closed doors. Why don't they tell us about this stuff? Well, the way that people get communicated is it comes before the board. That's when we're going to talk about it. We don't have meetings other than board meetings. So if it isn't, and if you're not following the board, if you weren't going to the meetings when we were talking about replacing tech, and we talked about it probably at 20 meetings before we did anything, but yet kept hearing once we voted to build a new tech that everything was done behind closed doors, and nobody comes to you as a member of the public and says, here's everything that's going on with the school board. It's up to the members of the public to attend meetings, read minutes, watch live streams, do whatever. It takes a lot of time, but that's the only way that you're going to be informed.
It also, I'm interrupting, but, people go to the polls and they elect us because I believe that they trust us, and that I don't believe that people who voted for us believe that we're dishonest and would hide things from them. And so there may be a few people who might want to say that kind of stuff and float those kind of rumors out there that the board operates behind closed doors. But most thinking people know that's a lie. They know that's not true. It doesn't mean that some people get to say that the board is hiding from us. Because this is a free country, you can say anything you want to. The question is whether we have to continually react to it. So, all right.
And I think the question that we're discussing here is basically when do the cameras get turned on? And I don't know if I know where everybody stands. So, can we go around and just state? Sure. Do you want to start, Zach, or do you want me to start? So your camera's off.
No, I'm not gonna, I don't wanna be said that way. For the period, school board meeting, provided prior to the start of the school board meeting, there could just be a period there. I don't, but, and so, by sticking with the fact that it's a board meeting, we don't need, like Shannon pointed out, the district to broadcast. I guess I'm fine with that. This is, because this is gonna turn into this catch-22 right now in today's times.
Mhm.
And we do then, no. But because of, oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, the microphone is off. I support what's there because this is a school board meeting and we broadcast the board. If someone wants to broadcast public comment on their own, that's fine.
Initially, I thought we should leave it as it is, but people are going to record this stuff anyway. People that are here, and I just as soon get it. They get it straight from us rather than through Facebook or something like that. So I think we should probably turn the cameras on.
I don't think the cameras ought to go on. I agree. I mean, it's not our responsibility to broadcast what people want to say to other people. And just because they're going to do it anyway is no rational reason for us to do it. My mother, just because so-and-so jumps off the bridge, should you?
I'm aligning with Zach and Dr. Green on that. I like the 2-second readings that are presented tonight.
And I would still fall on the side of we should broadcast it, just simply because it creates an aura of transparency.
I'm falling with, so hard. I'm falling with Zach and Shannon and Dr. Green on this.
Monica? No. Do you want to give us your opinion? No, that's fine. You don't have to. Dr. Green?
Just for the purpose of what we're doing, we are sending a message to the staff about whether to go back and rewrite this. That's why we need to have some clarity.
So, right, now the question is, this moves on to a third reading. Does it have any revisions? And does it come for a consent agenda third reading? Or does it come for a full-length third reading? Natalie?
I think because we're not all in agreement, I think it should come for a full third reading.
With, and are we recommending then no changes? No changes to the second reading?
It seems like that's what majority is
Did you change one
saying.
word, or was that on the other one? That was on the other one, okay.
I mean, if the will of the board here is that we don't change it, and it's going to come back for a third reading, we're not going to change it there either, are we? I mean, it can come before the board and, for a full third reading, but I don't think that we're going to.
Dr. Green?
The thing that will happen at the final reading is that people's votes will be clear.
Okay.
We have to either vote it up or down. If we vote it down, then it's got to go back for revision.
Yeah.
So that's the,
Yeah.
that's why.
Make it messy.
I think, anyway.
Yep, I like that.
So we have time to think about it and then we can bring it
Okay.
back.
So I'm thinking that we would like to see all three of these that we discussed tonight. We want a full third reading for. We're still, going to break a record here, so.
I don't really care whose fault it is. You're. After that little deal with the 5-minute changing your average, I think that's.
Okay, so we're good to move on to the next one. We have proposed revised board policy 206. That is not it.
208.
208, excellent. Second reading for 208, which is development, adoption, and implementation of policies, presented by Dr. Lori Putnam.
Thank you. There's just a couple of changes to review from the last time. Looking at 3B, just some language change from relation to procedures goes to guidelines. Scrolling down, in an emergency instead of the case of, that just again, that language change. And then this is based off your feedback from last meeting that each school board member shall have access to school district policies. Al had requested that we move the school district policies are available on our district website to be the next thing that is shared. And then additionally, a copy of the school district policy shall be available electronically in the central office and made available for reference purposes to other interested persons. And we do list the school website so that they are, everybody knows where to find them. Looking down, and then again, just cleaning that up for keeping the policies current. And again, just language change down here under the district, keeping in mind the mission, and then superintendent or designee. Again, doesn't change the intent of the policy, just language from MSBA.
All right, thumbs up, nice job. That one can go to the consent agenda, huh?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports then. Staying with Dr. Putnam, she has the superintendent's report.
All right, let me get to the right spot. Here we are. Good evening, Chair Haas, members of the Board of Education, community watching from home and in the audience. To all of you, thanks for your participation in our meeting this evening. We are enjoying an action-packed August, as you heard from our district team. And I want to just recognize that not only are our district team hard at work, but counselors are already back in our schools, finalizing student schedules. Many of our teachers have come back and are working hard to prepare classrooms and materials for the start of school. Custodians and grounds crews are dedicatedly readying our school facilities, and clerical teams are busy welcoming new families and staff. And I also want to give a shout out to our coaches and activity staff who have been working all summer to prepare for preseason and the kickoff of fall activities. Truly, it is much more than just even the representation that you saw this evening. It is a full district staff who are back working hard to make sure that our schools are ready and our sites are ready for students and families. And to all of you who are out working, please know that your efforts are noticed and appreciated. Speaking of activities, our ADs and ACs held 3 meetings last week, both at Tech and Apollo, where they welcome participants and families who intend to take part in activities during the school year. Although it was a new format, so we welcomed all families who are participating for the entire year instead of just the fall. Attendance on both sides of town was great. We did give away spiritware and season passes for activities as door prizes for lucky attendees. Who are drawn, not everybody, but who are drawn. We are also pleased to share that based on feedback from students, families, and coaches, we were able to add a strength and conditioning coach for each of the fall, winter, and spring seasons at both of our high schools, and that's really exciting for our students. Our district leadership team, as you know, has been working hard. We met 3 times over the past couple weeks. You heard what we were preparing on, and we do feel really confident that our aligned work and clear focus in the areas that we talked about will help us meet the high expectations we've set for ourselves and our learning communities. And we look forward to bringing that progress back to you through the form of continuous improvement plan updates and updates on our strategic plan. And as we are preparing, I just want to say thank you to the board and community for your continued support. We do need and appreciate your ongoing partnership. We look forward to seeing all of our district staff back on August 29th. Everybody got the email. So district staff, don't forget to check your email. August 29th, looking forward to seeing you. And then again at the great 742 get together on August 30.
Okay, then Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe we have 2. Achievement, Integration, and Equity Committee, Chair Natalie Copeland.
Thank you, Chair Haas. We met this morning in this very room, and we talked about the curriculum purchase review and then also community partnerships through ESSER 3 funding. So for the curriculum purchase review, Lori Post shared with us the struggles that the pandemic has caused for curriculum reviews and purchases, things like actual books versus computer-based, prices that are doubling, tripling, and the laundry list goes on. She also shared that the timing for the state to revise the standards has been thrown off, and then our folks are consistently ebbing and flowing with the changes that are happening or not happening at the state level. And this topic will come back to this committee, to our committee in November, after further review from administration, and then it will be coming before the board beginning of 2023. As far as community partnerships go that are funded through ESSER 3 funding, Dr. Rivard shared a review of the community partnerships that we have funded through ESSER 3 funding, and we'll hear a little bit more about this as a board when the summer report is given next board meeting. And that is it.
Thank you. And then Board Finance and Audit Committee, Chair Al Dahlgren.
We met and we had KDV in, right? KDV was in to Nancy Schultzenberg from Bergen KDV reviewed the 2022 audit plan, and not a whole lot of discussion there. They've done audits for many, many years for us, and it's going to follow a similar plan. It's going to be the focus areas are really around the ESSER funding. Then we talked, the second item on the agenda was the adult lunch prices, and we covered that tonight, so I won't go into that. The next item that we talked about was Board Policy 799, fundraising by booster clubs, school support programs. And this policy was reviewed at the last meeting. Amy recapped the suggested changes. She also reviewed the procedures and list of items which she pulled out of the policy. The policy had a lot of procedures in it, and we asked her to take them out and put it into the administrative procedures manual. The committee agrees with the revisions and recommends that it should be taken to Board Development Committee for review and into the school board for September approval. And we did Board Policy 705, investments, and we couldn't really figure out what MSBA was trying to do with this policy or why we have this policy. So we recommended on that one that we table any further discussion about the investments policy. A lot of that's covered by statute, and there was a lot of things in there that didn't make sense. So Amy is going to go back to the Minnesota School Boards Association and say, please clarify what you're trying to say here because it doesn't make sense. Then we did policy 720, which is vending machines, and Amy feels this one isn't necessary and also noted that most other districts do not have this included in their policies. The state statutes noted in the policy don't include anything about vending machines. The committee discussed and decided to table this policy also, and as long as she's calling MSBA, ask why are they recommending a policy for vending machines when the policy itself doesn't make any sense. So could they either give us a clarification, a new policy, or or make the recommendation to delete it? And that was the end of our Finance Committee meeting.
Zach?
I don't have a report. I just wanted to encourage everyone to fill out the AMSD Legislative Platform Survey. I re-forwarded it to everybody. Might have gotten Tuesday, so.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, last up then is future agenda items. September board meeting and work session topics will include the MCA State Accountability Report, the 2022 Summer Programming Review, schools updates, yay, more policy readings. At this time, does any board member want to suggest a future agenda item? Board Policy Development and Governance Committee will review requests and report on their recommendations. Al?
I think it would be really good to have a presentation on exactly what is going on with the curriculum pricing and how is that going to fit in, just a discussion about how that's going to fit into future budgets. Because it's gone from something where we buy textbooks and they last for 10 years and we pull them out and use them over and over and over again, to where everything has gone to a subscription price for an annual fee. You can use this curriculum, and those fees are going up, and something's got to happen at some point. But I would like to get ahead of it a little bit and have the discussion on how are we going to handle it going into the future? How is that going to fit into our budgets?
Good, Natalie?
So the administration asked for some more time since some of this is kind of in that ebbing and flowing. And then to really decide what our next steps are, like you're saying, or come up with some ideas for next steps, then bring it back to the Achievement Integration and Equity Committee in November, and then either January or, somewhere around there, then bring it to a full board so that we know, is that timeline enough though? To be considered for budget? Is that an okay timeline?
I mean, I don't look at it as something that's critical to like next year's budget as much as I see it as a future issue, that so many of the curriculums are switching to online curriculums and there's fees that are due every year, and those are increasing, and I don't know. It has to be an issue. It's not a 742 issue. It's a statewide, nationwide issue. But I would just like to know more about it and where it's headed, so we can at least be prepared for the financial cliff.
They were saying as long as we have ESSER funding left, it isn't a real big deal, but the ESSER funding's going to run out in a year. And the state is so screwed up on their standards. They change them, they rearrange them, they change the order. It's very hard to do curriculum when the state keeps changing their mind. That's what we're up against, but we'll do what we can.
Monica and then Dr. Green.
So am I hearing right? This I suggested a topic, and it is being discussed in Achievement and Integration. So we, board development, don't have to do anything with the topic. Achievement is going to bring it back. Is that right?
That's our plan, if that's okay with board development.
That's perfect.
Dr. Green.
The point of textbooks, and I mentioned that Al talked about, we buy textbooks and they get these massive boxes of textbooks. They come in, we use them for 10 years, and then we buy new ones. The cost associated with the annual fee goes on forever. What we get, though, is an updated book every year. So I'm interested in knowing what the cost today, or what now is the cost compared to what it cost us to buy. If that's not a lot of work, by the way, if it's a lot of work, it's not an issue. It's just, if you buy a textbook if you bought a textbook that was this thick and you could hold it, what did it cost you? How long did it last you? And what was the value of it as opposed to what we're doing now? And and are there options? Because that may be the only way you know, at 50 years from now, it won't even be a discussion, I would think, that, you know, you'll get the implant and all your textbooks will be shot into you when you're a baby.
Those are the exact questions that I want to hear more about. I don't know the answer to any of those questions that you just asked. All I know is that in my business, I used to buy software and I'd use it for 10, 15 years. Now everything is going to an annual subscription. It's like QuickBooks. You used to buy the disc and you could use it until you had to buy a new update.
Right.
And you'd get 4 or 5 years out of it. Now you got a QuickBooks Online and it's or $350 or whatever dollars per year.
Right,
And
but
so many things are going that
part
way.
of that value is that you pay $100 a year for Office 365, and every month they update it.
Yes, so you're always updated.
Always.
But you're paying
Unless it's
but you're paying $100 a year.
Unless it's your wife, and I know Sally's not listening, so I can say this. Sally's computer wasn't working, and it brought it back in. She had missed 6 updates, and they could not back it up and go back and do the updates, you know, so we bought a new computer. But sorry, Sally. It was just so funny, you know.
Natalie?
I'll say that Lori Posh has all these items in her mind and more that she'll share with us. We don't have to conjecture about it anymore tonight.
Excellent.
Dyslexia was the other one.
Yeah. And Monica, that one policy, if you guys can brainstorm ideas on how to come up with a different plan for board committees and how we could do that in what would seemingly be seek more input, that policy is coming forward to you. I don't know which one it is. No, not one in front of us tonight, 213. That's coming your way. But feedback from tonight was that, is there a different system that we could do to pick who's on what committee? And I don't know if there is, but. All right. Meeting is adjourned. It is 10:07 PM. Thank you for watching.